Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 6, 2025 meeting of the Cache County Planning Commission. Grateful that you're here this evening for our meeting. We will begin tonight's meeting with some opening remarks by Brady Christensen, after which we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Christensen.
Thank you. I'm going to give my opening remarks in the form of a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for many blessings. We're thankful we can be here this night as members of the Cache County Planning and Zoning Commission and members of the community. We're thankful for the opportunities that Thou provides for us, and we're thankful for the opportunity we have to participate and help with the local government. And we ask Thee that we might be guided and directed in the decisions we make this night, that they will be in the best interest of all involved. Thank You once again for this beautiful place we have to live. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Please stand and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilperson Gunnell looks a little different tonight. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's an improvement.
Thank you. Thanks.
So we're glad that you're here tonight with us. Let's see. We have need to review our agenda. Any changes or modifications to the agenda?
Yeah, just one slight one for the rezone, CS rezone. It's located 1500 West, 3000 North, Mendon. We're just going to change that to Cache Junction just because it's a bit closer to there.
Okay. All right. And then the minutes. Everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes. If so, I would entertain a motion to approve both of those.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have two items on the consent agenda tonight, and just for those people here visiting with us, a consent agenda item has met all of the requirements and really doesn't bear other discussion unless there are folks in the community that would like to speak specifically to that, maybe have concerns about those. Is there anyone here to speak on the BLT subdivision amendment or the Laurent Falls subdivision amendment? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda items.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one concern on the, or just a comment on the item 2, the Laurent Falls subdivision amendment. Just want to make sure that they follow the minimum distance at least from that intersection with the access to that proposed third lot.
Okay.
That's a busy intersection, and I think it was minimum of 200 feet.
Okay.
From what I read in the.
Okay. And by that we can verify that, but
We just included the red line on their plat.
okay. All right. Would someone like to make a motion on the consent agenda items?
I'd make a motion that we approve the consent items 1 and 2.
Okay. Motion. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
That's with the associated conditions and conclusions, right?
Oh, excuse me, yes.
You'll accept that amendment? Okay. A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Consent agenda items are moving along. We have 3 regular action items on tonight's agenda. We will begin with the Cronquist Minor Extraction CUP, after which we have a public hearing on or about 5:45, the CS rezone, and about 5:55, the Tanner Nicole Godfrey home rezone. So begin with the Cronquist Minor Extraction CUP. Connor, do you want to give us an update?
Yeah, so it's the Sean Cronquist Minor Extraction Conditional Use Permit. It's a request to operate a minor mineral extraction and excavation operation on 4.97 acres of 2 parcels that are 179 acres total. So some brief background, in 2014, a zoning clearance for site grading was applied for and obtained, but the structure was never built. In 2020, in May, a conditional use permit application for a temporary minor mineral extraction and excavation operation was submitted. It was withdrawn in July. Then in 2022, in October, a notice of violation was issued for mineral extraction, topsoil extraction, and site grading without a conditional use permit. Then 2023, in April, the applicant filed for and received a land disturbance permit, but did not address the other 3 violations. And in September, a final notice of violation was issued to Mr. Cronquist for mineral extraction, topsoil extraction, and site grading. And then in December, hearing with the land use hearing officer was held to address the applicant's appeal. And then in January of 2024, the land use hearing officer issued a determination that denied the applicant's appeal, but granted the appeal to the topsoil extraction. So that's when Mr. Cronquist filed for a conditional use permit in April of last year. So just some brief history on the application itself. Staff recommended this item for denial at the 4 April 2024 and 3 October 2024 Planning Commission meetings. And then extensions and or continuances have been granted since then. And then, so 6th of February 2025, that was our last one. It was basically just to say, hey, let's do a good analysis on this third-party traffic impact study. So that's why we're meeting here today. So as part of the operation, no structures are expected to be constructed. Signage, there is no proposed signage, but the applicant is willing to add any signage required by Cache County and Smithfield City. There is a bit in the LOI that says that they're not going to add those or they're not required, but there is some code further in there in 1713 that says it is, so they just need to amend their letter of intent on that. So the purpose of the operation is just per the LOI. The applicant states that the current grade of the property inhibits their ability to run an agricultural operation, specifically longhorn beef. Therefore, they want to excavate 4.97 acres and fill in 1.4 acres as a way to create a level pasturage area. They basically believe this will better enable them to run an agricultural operation. Prior to recording the permit, the applicant must survey less than 5 acres of land that will be at the extraction area. The survey has to be submitted to the Development Services Department for review and approval. Employees, there's no full-time employees as part of this operation, but the employees of Birch Creek Landscaping Incorporated, a company that Mr. Cronquist is a registered agent for, will be involved in the extraction operation. Hours of operation, there will be a bit varied throughout the year. So while the Cache County School District is in regular session, the hours of operation will be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. And then while the school session is out, it's just 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The applicant states that days of operation will be sporadic as material is planned due to limited market viability on being donated versus sold to projects. Therefore, there will be a maximum of 20 loads per day and a maximum of 50 loads per week without notice of the county. After more than 50 loads per week, the applicant will notify the county via email. And part of that, per Cache County Code 1713-070, no operations related to the extraction can occur on Memorial Day, July 4th, July 24th, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And the applicant agreed in their letter of intent to not operate on Martin Luther King Jr. Day and President's Day. Equipment. The anticipated equipment needed for the project includes a track hoe, water truck, front-end loader, bulldozer, and dump truck. That's just per their LOI. If the applicant performs, there is a little bit of history. Skip the page there. There we go. Cache County Code 1707020A states that should any words or phrases not be defined in codes as notes, use the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Per the LOI, engineering recommends that dump truck be further defined as the letter of intent because Merriam-Webster dictionary defines dump truck as an automotive truck for the transportation of bulk material that has a body which tilts to dump its contents. In the construction and excavation industry, dump truck is a specific type of vehicle and differs from other large transportation and excavation equipment, such as semi-trucks with side dumps and or other trailers attached to a dump truck. Per the LOI, the applicant specifically states they'll be using a dump truck and does not mention any further equipment related to the transportation of the extracted material. Therefore, the applicant is limited to using a dump truck. So they can't use semi-trucks with trailers, side dump trailers, pup trailers, or other types of trailers such as wheel devices. basically to remove material off the property. At the time of review and based on the applicant's LOI, only a typical dump truck was considered as part of the Public Works review. Engineering recommends that all other types of trailers be prohibited until further review can be done to determine the ability of a truck with a trailer encroaching into oncoming traffic. Per the LOI, the applicant states will not be using any further equipment, so no crusher or anything like that. Should they decide to expand on their equipment usage, they do need to come in for conditional use permit amendment. Extraction, per the applicant, the extraction operation is 4.97 acres. Per the provided site plan and letter of intent, the total fill cut to be removed from the extraction operation area will be 190,000 cubic feet. The applicant notes in their LOI that the applicant intends for this project to be completed within 3 years, but this timeline is subject to change based on the limitation put on the project by Cache County. The staff report does have some times just based on what's like dump truck and carry. Keep in mind it's a little bit loose, but it's just kind of to give a general idea of that 3-year figure. 1713.050B states that a minor extraction operation must remain below 5 acres. In the Sean Cronquist and Crazy R Longhorn Ranch v. Cache County appeal, the land use hearing officer determined that should the amount of land that the appellants Sean Cronquist and Crazy R Longhorn Ranch, which to excavate under 5 acres, they could pursue a conditional use permit for a minor mineral extraction excavation operation. Again, prior to recording the permit, the applicant must survey a less than 5 acre excavation area and provide that to the Development Services Department for review. And during operation, the applicant must not expand beyond this extraction area. That 5 acres is a very hard and fast limit. Per the LOI, the applicant will not request any further extraction permits on these parcels, and per the LOI, no topsoil will be removed from the subject parcels. The fill area is expected to be 1.4 acres, and just per the site plan, that's 37,000 cubic feet. The maximum number of trips per day will be 20. The applicant expects no garbage or waste to be produced. In the event that there is, they'll properly dispose of it at the Logan landfill. Per Cache County Code 1713.8080, a reclamation agreement must be in place for final approval. So the applicant will have to work with Cache County to get that submitted and drawn up and recorded. And so from there, basically the county, the land use ordinance stipulates that a proposed CUP must not be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare of persons residing or working in the vicinity. If it causes unreasonable risk to the safety of persons or property because of vehicular traffic or parking or similar risk, and or it unreasonably interferes with the lawful use of the surrounding property. The primary activities of proposed use are a minor extraction operation, will be on 4.97 acres, and if they are working within the regulations of their letter of intent and these conditions, we won't expect any unreasonable risk to the safety of persons. The primary access to the subject property is from Smithfield Canyon Road. The driveway to the site must be improved within the right-of-way to meet commercial standards. A basic review of Smithfield Canyon Road is it's an existing county facility that provides access to residential areas, agricultural areas, and it's the main thoroughfare up to the Cache recreational area. The big condition on this one is it appears that when trucks are pulling out of that area, they're cutting across both lanes of traffic and it's causing a chip on the other side of the road. So we'll have to work to improve that. Service provisions, just per code, they do have to provide a parking analysis just for review and approval by the county engineer and development services department. The county fire district did not have any specific comments, but they are worried about the condition of the road and the ability for emergency services to respond. So they just need to submit, the applicant just needs to submit plans to the Cache County Fire District showing the access to the site. Solid waste disposal, again, they're just saying that they'll take it out. If any is generated, they're not really expecting anything, but if it is, they'll just dispose of it. And so there are some known or reasonably anticipated detrimental effects, traffic user conflicts. It is a recreational road. It does have a lot of traffic. There are concerns on that. So bikers, joggers, walkers, those are a pretty big concern. Stormwater and site development. The applicant has obtained a land disturbance permit, but it's specific to construction activities and not necessarily this use type. So the extraction operation must obtain coverage under the multi-sector general permit, MSGO, stormwater discharge associated with industrial activities for the state. A copy of this approval then has to be sent to the Public Works Department. Dust, per the LOI, the applicant intends on using a treatment of magnesium chloride prior to the operation starting on an as-needed basis. Additionally, a water truck will be used whenever the operation is active. The applicant must ensure that fugitive dust is mitigated. On the water truck issue, there is currently an investigation being performed by the Division of Water Rights. There's allegations that Mr. Cronquist is improperly using water that he doesn't have rights to use. So that has to be resolved before those water trucks can be used at all. Section corners, there is a section corner that's pretty close. It's right about here. If you look at the map, it's just right in here. It doesn't look like it'll be impacted, but in the event they get within 30 feet of that, they do just have to contact the Public Works Department. Noise, it can be reasonably inferred that noise may be an issue due to the industrial use of large trucks. The applicant must utilize best practices to limit noise impacts from spreading beyond the project area. Sensitive areas, steep and moderate slopes. Steep slopes can't be developed, so he can't work in those areas. And if he's going to work in moderate slope areas, he has to provide a geotechnical report for that. There is also a source water protection area that's on this property. Basically, that's restricted to just septic systems, and as there's no septic system here, it's not too much of a concern. One concern that came up from Smithfield City, they reached out a couple of days ago, I want to say. They have a water pipe, their main water pipe. I'd have to look at the language, but it's their main deal going right through there, and so they're concerned about trucks driving over that thing every day. And the big concern is that it's 1.5 feet deep, so it's definitely a concern for them. They've asked me to express their concern. So, public notices were posted to the Utah Public Notice website on 27 December 2024. They were posted in 3 public places on 27 December 2024. And then it was posted within 300 feet on the 22nd of March 2024. So this item's been publicly continued for the better part of a year. That's why they haven't been sent out again. At this time, at the time of writing the staff report, there have been a total of 24 written public comments. We've received several more since then. So that's pretty much the operation. We submit this to you with the list of conditions.
All right, thank you, Connor, appreciate. That's a mouthful.
Well, he condensed 98 pages, so.
Yeah,
Only 98, come on.
for sure. All right. Well, I assume by your standing that you have something to add along to that.
Yes, Wayman Stoddart, I am the representative of applicant, I'm the agent for the applicant. If I can approach the commission.
Mm-hmm.
We were given a copy of the staff report and an opportunity to review the conditions. We're happy to and prepared to stipulate to the majority of them. There are a couple that we either thought for procedural reasons or legal reasons needed to be rephrased, and then there's one that we hoped to operate under a different, or rather address the concern in a different fashion. First off, we want to thank the Public Works Department as well as the Development Services Office. They've done a fantastic job going over this over the course of the year and coming before you on numerous occasions. It hasn't been easy, and we appreciate the fine work that they've done. We're prepared to stipulate to every condition as well as continue to operate under the letter of intent in which the applicant put forward many of his own conditions beyond the requirements of code. That includes starting at 8 o'clock during the school year. That includes the days that were mentioned. It also includes the limitation of 20 trucks a day and 50 trucks a week without prior notice. It also includes some of the magnesium chloride treatments. The only conditions that applicant has any objection to, I've handed you 2 pieces of paper. One is the red line of the county's proposed conditions, and then the other is a clean copy if you were to adopt the clean copy. Any condition not modified on the red line is something that applicant would be happy to stipulate to. The vast majority of them are stipulated to. Going through specifically, number 4, condition 4 provides that during operation the applicant cannot extract gravel from their property. Applicant has long maintained that he's extracting fill material, not gravel. And for the sake of making sure that this condition is efficacious and actually restricts applicant, we wanted to switch that for fill material. To the extent the commission is worried, we can put gravel, fill material, and a whole category of material that can't be extracted. But the intent behind this restriction was to prohibit applicant from removing material on those days, and so we thought it best to modify that in a way that accurately reflected that. As to number 5, there was some comment about how the engineering study requested that the applicant provide a letter of intent, more clarification with relation to the types of vehicles that were being pulled out. Specifically, applicant did provide that clarification in a meeting with the county where he outlined that there were 3 different vehicles involved, or 2 vehicles and a trailer involved. It's a dump truck, a dump truck and pup, and a side loading truck. All of those have been used on the property historically. They've all been used to bring in hay bales. They've all been used to perform other agricultural operations on the property. And we would ask that we would be able to amend the letter of intent. Under 2, there's an already requested amendment to the letter of intent. And so to provide more clarity, we would ask to be able to amend to include those 2 vehicles. We can provide VIN numbers if necessary for those vehicles, but those are the vehicles that will be being used and have historically been used. To go to the comment of review of the application, if you will turn in your staff reports to page 54 of the staff report. This is the independent traffic assessment performed for Cache County, in which it classifies the vehicles that are being considered for this use application as all vehicles class category 4 buses or higher. So the Cache County has already conducted a traffic study wherein they assessed the impact that these trucks and trailers would have. In fact, it assessed the impact that everything category 4 or higher, which includes multi-trailer 6-axis trucks, multi-trailer 5-axis trucks, and multi-trailer 7 or more axis trucks, and the impact those would have on the road, and concluded, jumping to the conclusion of the traffic study was that the safety of vehicles and pedestrians along the Canyon Road will not be significantly impacted by the addition of project traffic because the average daily traffic on Canyon Road, because of the average daily traffic and the intermittent nature of the vegetation with a clear point on the road shatter. Where there is no statutory requirement that limits applicant in his use of trucks, we feel that applicant's self-limiting to the use of a single side loading truck, a dump truck, and a dump and truck and pup successfully and clearly establishes and ameliorates those concerns without creating more of a restriction that will cause problems for applicant in complying with the timelines that applicant has proposed. So we would request that Condition 5 be amended to propose Condition 5, which is that applicant will update the letter of intent with the specific vehicles that will be used to remove fill material from the property, a dump truck, said dump truck and pup, and a side dump. Applicant will only use those vehicles during the operation. Condition 8 is a condition that applicant proposed that he would not seek any further excavation permits on parcel 08020009 and 080460009. Applicant still intends to comply with that requirement. There is a legal concern on applicant's behalf that by simply saying those parcels will no longer be eligible to receive further extraction, it violates Utah's regulation against perpetuities by creating a perpetual land use restriction on those parcels. So in order to try to give effect to the intended Condition 8, we have proposed that applicant will not be able to apply for a temporary extraction permit, which solves that legal issue of perpetuities. As to 13 and 14, those are the requests where the county asks to improve within the right-of-way. Mr. Cronquist is happy to improve all elements within the Cache County right-of-way. He would simply seek Cache County's approval and cooperation in removing any obstructions if there are any. Because this is a Cache County right-of-way, they're entitled to control what goes into the right-of-way, and so we would need Cache County's permission and consent assistance to remove any obstructions to that improvement. But we would be happy to do the improvement. On number 18, Mr. Cronquist, having received this draft, has already reached out to the state as it relates to the MSGO stormwater discharge associated with industrial activities coverage. And it appears preliminarily that because he is not engaging in industrial operations, grinder, filtering, sorting, those kind of things, that permit may not be available to him. So we simply ask that number 18 be modified to be if applicable, so that if that is not available to him, forestalled from moving forward on his operation. And then number 20, prior to use of water trucks by the applicant, what we're phrasing here is that we are not aware of what specific investigation is being referred to here. No investigation number, no citation number. There has been no violation number issued, so because we don't know exactly which one we want to address, we wanted to clarify that applicant will not use water trucks on that piece of property. There are other users who use that road, and they should be allowed to use water trucks on that road. Applicant will not. In the event that dust does become necessary, and we're happy to amend our letter of intent to include this, so in the event that dust does become a problem and applicant is required to use a water truck, applicant will happily provide a receipt. He generally uses Smithfield City hydrants and pays Smithfield City for the water in those hydrants to fill his water truck. He would happily provide those receipts for any time the water truck is used to show that the water truck was filled from Smithfield City hydrants and with water purchased from Smithfield City. So those would be our proposed modifications to the conditions. Beyond that, applicant appreciates the time of the commission and looks forward to moving forward to this in a way that maintains the canyon that he lives in as well and maintains that character. Mr. Darty is with me today. He's the project manager. He was brought on in order to ensure that this project does not materially impact the quality and character of Smithfield Canyon. So if the commission has any questions for him, he's happy to answer it, but in the interest of brevity, neither Mr. Cronquist nor Mr. Darty will be speaking without questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Update. Any comments from staff on these proposed amendments?
I don't know, I have concerns about number 5. In traffic impact study, it does mention that combination vehicles are a concern. There is a sight distance issue there. That's what I'm concerned about there. The applicant did have a chance to amend their letter of intent, and they just didn't after they were notified that there was a concern about that, so that's kind of what I'm worried about. So that's a little bit worrying, but that's kind of just up to you to decide on that one. That's just my personal opinion. As for 13 and 14, that's kind of a public works concern, so if Matt wants to speak, he can come up and speak.
You mind if we address one other one while you're going through?
Yeah.
So on number 8, personally, I guess I don't really see a difference either way it is, but I would rather stay with the counties. If this happens, I would rather see it stay as the county drew it. Otherwise, if we put applicant, we'll be unable to apply for a temporary extraction permit. All he's got to do is sell it, transfer it to somebody else. Somebody else can come in and reapply.
Yeah, so what he's doing with the material itself is Crazy R Longhorn Ranch. The property owner will not make a profit. So I don't know about that. The applicant is saying that part of his business is them coming back and moving the material, but that's definitely a valid concern.
So you're not concerned about it?
I'm a little concerned about it, yeah.
You are?
Yeah, I would recommend we keep it as it is.
Okay.
Brady, just on that one, I'd say you wouldn't want to just do a carte blanche on these parcels. No permit would be on that into perpetuity. That was the concern that was mentioned earlier. So if you put some sort of time frame on it, or to say the current owner and or Sean or something like that, effect to just limit it, that would be my recommendation, but.
I appreciate your comments, but I didn't hear them, so.
Sorry. As expressed by Mr. Stoll out there, the way it's currently phrased, if you have a, basically a prohibition on applying on those parcels into perpetuity, you would run into some potential problems there. So my recommendation would be to either put some sort of time frame limit on that, so that, hey, say applicant can't do it, that gives it kind of concerns, that alleviates that concern, or say no applications will be submitted on these parcels for so many years, or whatever you want to do. Just put some sort of time frame limit on that, whether it be to the applicant would help address that, or a time frame there. So
What would be your thoughts if we went to something like, if another route of accessibility was made or discovered? But I don't know, my concern is with the Canyon Road the way it is, just because we've got a history here of 11 years that we have dealt with, and it's been going on longer than that from what I understand, but so it's probably never going to go away. But what could effectively help both the applicant if he wanted to do it again, to get it out, another way, but yet protect the county from having to go through what we've been through?
I don't know if Mr. Stoll wants to.
If I may, applicant has no intent to do it again, and that's part of what the proposed modified condition was requiring. The only concern from applicant's perspective is a purely legal one, and I'm also the attorney for applicants, so I'm speaking from this as a legal expert as well. The Utah prohibition against perpetuities makes any land use restriction that lasts perpetually per se invalid. And so as written, it runs into a perpetuities issue of being per se invalid.
Okay.
If there was either a restriction on time or a restriction on, like we have proposed, that applicant is barred from doing it for his entire ownership, that solves that legal issue, but it's not applicant wanting to seek additional restrictions on this parcel or additional excavation on this parcel. He's happy to agree to it for his entire ownership. The concern is a purely legal one.
Whatever you feel's best.
Could that be done per the period of the permit?
I think, for the period, the permit's be 3 years, right? So if it's granted, and operate for 3 years, it's done, then after that, you'd be able to apply for it again. I think what he's wanting to do is say, hey, even after the permit's done, he's not gonna go back and apply for it, which is one.
So we could be more restricted that way by saying by the term of ownership of the applicant?
Ownership or some time frame or whatever, then yes. But to just say these parcels can't have any more permits, carte blanche in perpetuity, you might run into problems doing that.
Okay. Other thoughts on these proposed amendments?
Mr. Chairman, so I guess I was honestly blindsided when we received this on Tuesday to bend the direction that we've been previously, and then to have it come with the recommendation for approval. Because we haven't changed locations, nothing's changed. But my question is, when we refer to 4.97 acres, and from past pit experience, and where they reference 2 parcels, is this saying that they can mine the entire 2 parcels as long as they keep it to a 4.97 acre parcel? Or is it restricting and ending it when the identified 4.97 is done and gone?
And perhaps Connor can speak to that. I think that was the intent of the language here, was to.
That was what but I wanted to clarify.
Was to limit that.
Yeah, so as I understand it, is our interpretation as development services is, he can only remove from 5 acres. He can't stash things in 5 acres and remove from broader part of the parcels and put it in that 5 acre area and then remove it. He can only dig out that 5 acre parcel, or that 5 acre area.
And so with that, part of my question too is, if you'll zoom out a little bit, this was debated in one of our past meetings, that we were already at or exceeding 5 acres with the scar that we see there. I don't know if they're gonna go with that as the 5 acres, or if they're gonna pick another 5 acres, but regardless, if that's not their 5 acres, they basically can't move them stockpiles or whatever else, correct?
Say that again for me.
So my question is, I remember in one of our past meetings, there was debate, because we talked about, like with our other pits that we've done in the past, that we maintain and stay within that 4 to 5 acre footprint. But there was debate at the time that we were already at or exceeding that with what we see right there. And so my question is, if we pick that as, or if applicant picks that as his 5 acres, clean that up and it's over. Or if he picks somewhere else, that is off limits then? How do we clarify that?
Andrew, you got an opinion on that one?
Because the language says that they will survey the 5 acres, and we don't say anything about specifically where.
I don't know if Wayman, do you want to jump
Yeah, I can answer that. If you can scroll in your packets on the application to page 27. Page 27 is a set of engineering diagrams that outline the full scope of Mr. Cronquist's leveling project, which I'm going to distinguish from the extraction project. It outlines a 4.97 acreage area of cut, as well as a 1.42 acre area of fill. Any material that is being removed from the property is only being removed from the 4.97 acres of cut outlined in this engineering diagram. That's what we intend to survey. The scar that you're seeing here is because what Mr. Cronquist is doing is he's removing material from the fill and putting it into the cut. He's moving the material, and as part of the delay and because of the continuances have happened, that has shaped in there being some material there that is still going to be pushed in to help with the fill and everything else. The only material that would be being removed from the parcel would come from the 4.97 acres of cut area that are in Exhibit 27, or sorry, page 27 of the application. That is what we intend to perform our survey on. To answer your question, Mr. Christensen, if you look at condition number 7 of the proposed, and this is one of the conditions the applicant has stipulated to, condition number 7 says that utilizing the less than 5 acre surveyed area as a storage location for surplus fill removed from larger areas of the property is not compliant with the definition of a minor extraction operation. Prior to recording the permit, the LOI must be revised to reflect that surplus fill material from beyond the 4.97 surveyed minor extraction operation cannot be stored in this defined area or removed from the site. So nothing can be put in to that 4.97 acres and then pulled out. It is only material that was originally in that 4.97 acres. That's how we understand it. That's how we understand and interpret that constraint, and that's what we would comply with going forward.
And maybe just by way of clarification, we have the engineer diagram here that shows that. Does that reflect this location?
That location is at the bottom of the engineering diagram. So the engineering diagram goes further north than that does. But because we're pushing the material and the way the hill is oriented,
Okay.
the material has been pushed down, and it's the scar area. So if you look at the far left of that scar area, that's actually fill. So that's where the land has been brought up with material from the cut area. So that's not where we're mining or extracting, to whatever term you want to use. That's actually area where the elevation has been brought up, and that's why it appears that way. We haven't pushed the topsoil back into place to begin reclamation efforts because we need to be able to remove the material, but that is not cut, that is actually fill.
So I guess, thanks for that clarification, but just to ask you then, so if this is approved tonight, and whether 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road, are we gonna see a much greater area? And it's just all been pushed to this area?
No.
Or are we only talking that we're gonna put a footprint on 4.97 acres?
You're going to put a footprint on 4.97 acres, and material will only be being extracted from that 4.97 acres. In 3 years, once we begin reclamation, there may appear to be a larger area that looks like that, because again, the right-hand side is fill. So because we have to fill the material, there's going to be, and again, this is in the engineering diagrams. So if you pull up the engineering diagrams on page 27 again,
How much more,
28 probably shows it better, the overall extent. So
Yes.
thank you for showing me that.
how much more fill do you anticipate? You still have 1.47 acres to fill?
we have filled, do you know how much you filled? Do you have an idea how much acreage is left? Acreage.
So why don't we fill all that and get that completed before any other material leaves the site?
Because the operation doesn't permit that. And so the reason that the operation doesn't permit that is because what we have to do is we have to push the material from the top, get it down to the bottom, and then push it back up in. And the way that works is right now we have to remove material in order to continue with the rest of the leveling operation. That's why we want to do it. If we were to move the material from the fill, then what we're going to end up with is we're going to end up with a staging area, and we're going to have the same conversation about, oh, well, now is the staging area 6 acres? Because once you disturb dirt, it's not going to be compacted, it's not going to be accessible in the same fashion. And so it makes more sense to be doing this operation concurrently with the actual leveling operation. And we are guaranteeing that that 4.97 cut area is the only area that material will come from. In fact, with avoiding to be pedantic, it's the only area material can come from, because it's the only area that we're reducing the slope of the property. Anywhere else is not being reduced, in fact, it's being raised, So no material could be generated from any area other than that 4.97 acres. And as Mr. Doherty just reminded me, we are using, did you say 50%? We're losing at least 50% of the material that's being pulled from that cut area on site. When we say cut and fill, we're not bringing in material for the fill. We're using the cut material in the fill, and it's just the excess cut that we can't otherwise waste on site that we're seeking the extraction for. And all of that, applicant feels is codified in condition 7 as far as prohibiting staging and prohibiting us from doing what you're concerned about. And I respect the concern, right? You don't want us pulling from all over the property to one area, then shipping it out. That's not the intent, and we feel that condition 7 successfully limits that as a possibility.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I've got a number of other concerns, but I would just like to hear from everybody else here. If you guys have no concerns and are ready to move ahead, I don't want to hold this up. I can vote. But if you have some concerns, I'd like to hear them, and I have others to express.
I would like Matt to come up and give any feelings that he has about 13 and 14 about the county and assisting in any blockages or impediments in the right-of-way. Do you have any concerns about that, Matt?
And I did not give Matt a copy of this because I was unaware he was in the back, so I'm going to give him a copy of this.
It's 13 and 14, Matt, in case you...
For the record, my name's Matt Phillips. I'm the county engineer, public works director. So when they come in to do work within the county right away, they'll have to submit plans. So they're not going to be able to just go in and remove any obstructions without prior approval from the engineering department. So they'll need to submit what their plan is, and then we'll address it at that time.
Okay.
So we don't have any concerns.
Okay, thank you,
It's
Matt.
just that I think what you're pointing out, if I'm not mistaken, though, is just the newer language in 13 and 14 that the county will assist in
Yeah.
ensuring
Yeah.
blockages or
So-
impediments. Is that?
When he spoke to that, I think he's saying, at least my interpretation of what he was saying was that the county's gonna assist, and if he's thinking we're gonna go in and remove all that blockage, that's not gonna happen.
Because that's how I read it.
Yes.
Is that the county's going to be responsible for doing these
So
things.
you're not in favor of any adjustments to 13 or 14? Just the blue.
I think I would probably want to further define what he's mentioning, assist. If that's, he thinks we're coming up there with our equipment and we're going to assist in that moving, that's different than if we're going to, enforce whatever the county code is with right-of-way stuff. There's a big difference there.
And I can clarify the assist intent. There is no intention that the county has to bear the burden of removing any obstructions. But as Matt was stating, any work done in the right-of-way has to be with county approval. So we would hope that the county would assist us in getting the requisite approvals to remove any obstructions as they may exist. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking for the county to assist through money or putting effort into it. We will do the removal. We will take care of all of those things. It's just the approval process.
And so you submit that approval to Matt first, and then from there?
Correct. And he would do all that through an encroachment permit. An encroachment permit would be required by the applicant. They would submit what their intent was, how they were going to come into compliance with the conditions of this, and then we would review those for approval, so.
Okay.
And if there's obstructions that are within the county right-of-way that need to come out, right, that's part of it. Now, if they're trying to, remove obstructions that are not necessarily imminent or that need to be moved to meet the conditions, then we're not gonna allow them to remove those either, so.
Thank
Does
you.
that help answer
Question
the
then,
question?
Matt, then those obstructions, are we talking about the sharp turns, so obstruction meaning we're gonna cut the hill back?
Yeah.
When we say obstructions, that's really, the only obstructions I see that could be removed is we're gonna move the hill back to give them more room for it.
I don't think there's any hill there to remove, but.
No, I mean, down the road.
Tree, right? It could be a tree. You know, I think there's a mailbox there. I don't know if that's the intent of where they're going with a mailbox or rocks or different things that have been placed in the right of way, maybe to impede them, but those things will all be looked at. So I'm not necessarily worried about, as long as he doesn't want us to come up there with our equipment.
Right.
I'm sure we can work through a manner within what's the county right of way, the public right of way, and getting them egress out of their site and improving that, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions while I'm here?
Yeah, I think the traffic impact study identified, you know, just vegetation along the roadway that's partially obscuring views to the access location or whatever, and that needs to be addressed, so, okay.
Correct, it did. So, in relation to the combination vehicles, those weren't studied for everything, but those were studied for ingress and egress out of the project site. And so, turning into the site, those combination vehicles didn't have any problem as far as site visibility, right? So if someone's coming up or down the road, they see the truck turning, they're able to see that truck in adequate time to slow down so that they don't have an accident.
And vice versa. The trucks can see down the road far enough to see.
Exiting that site, when they exit and they're stopped at that intersection and they're turning right to enter back on Canyon Road, the traffic study did identify that the time needed for combination units, there's not enough sight visibility there. That was based on the speed limit of what they found was the average speed limit of 35, so that is above the speed limit. But even at a 25, if you're using a larger combination vehicle, that time gap there's still not quite enough, but that's vegetation, it's up the street. And so we didn't put any conditions along with that, but those are things that the county needs to consider, probably trying to do on their own or try to mitigate some of those, so. But yes, I did find that, Chris.
Go ahead.
Matt, I just had one question with that traffic impact study. So just to clarify, was you more concerned about total usage of the canyon or more that access point?
So there was probably more studies done on the access point, because that's where their direct impacts are. As they go up and down the road, you know, that's less impact, that's a little less to say that they're the ones creating it. Based on the length of their truck, if you guys are familiar with a dump truck and a pup, right, there's a very long drawbar between those trailers. Engineering hasn't had a chance to analyze what that would do down and up the road and some of those things, and so engineering did recommend that if, at this point, dump trucks and probably side dumps be allowed, but for some of those larger vehicles, that they be maybe prohibited until we can conduct more studies and try to find ways to maybe mitigate some of those issues up and down the canyon. I'm not saying that we want to prohibit them, we just need a little more time, because some of those larger trucks and trailers, you know, they take a little more space. They're going to, you know, overhang into the opposing traffic a little more than, you know, just a normal dump truck, so. And we haven't had, that, we just barely got this TIS back recently, so we're looking at, you know, hey, we just need some more, we're just asking for a little more time, but we don't want to keep holding these guys up. So, hey, let them go with their dump trucks, their side dumps, but maybe we prohibit until we can get a better handle on if we need to go do some more shoulder improvements and different things like that to prohibit that overhang of some of those larger dump trucks and pups that have that very long drawbar, so. Yeah.
My final question in asking you about where your point of study was, I was under the impression that it was also going to be looking at the number of people and the usage in the canyon. So with that, when we look at that or measure that in January, Wouldn't our peak usage be July, August, well, even May on, when we've got joggers, walkers, all kinds of other people up the canyon?
And a lot more traffic, just because
So
Yeah,
recreational access up the canyon.
you guys are correct, right? So unfortunately, when this traffic study was done this time of year, it might not be the best, but however, we do get an average and we see some of the traffic increase. Our traffic impact study did show a heavy increase on the weekends. And so that's why engineering recommended that, you know, if they want to work on their site, that's not really going to impact the roads. But if they want to haul material up and down the roads, and they had already said that as part of their letter of intent, but that's when you're seeing those higher usages. You know, you're not seeing those higher usages necessarily Monday through Friday. You're seeing those on holidays, you're seeing them on weekends. And we feel like that's, you know, trying to somewhat mitigate health and safety, that if they're able to not operate on the weekends, that's, you know, that's when you're seeing those traffic increases, not necessarily on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, so.
It'll increase when they open the gate.
So,
You can't go up the canyon right now.
Okay,
yeah. Any other?
thank you, Matt. Appreciate that input. Okay, Commission, any discussion on this? I think that number 5 is probably the most impactful change of all of these, is changing the vehicle types.
And if I may, council member, I spoke to the applicant on that, and he has indicated that he would be prepared to change his new proposed condition 5 in line with engineering's request. So his new proposed condition 5 would be that applicant will update the LOI with specific vehicles that will be used to remove fill material from the properties, a dump truck and a side dump, and a dump and pup pending acceptance by the Cache County Engineering Department. So we would modify that condition to allow the engineering department to have more time to assess those impacts.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion on that proposed amendment?
on 5, I would be in favor if this goes dump truck only until further letter intent, original, and with the opportunity they had to change it. I'd rather leave it at that until engineering's done, because you get a side dump, you're just as long or longer than a truck and pup, or about equal.
Okay. Other thoughts on that?
I'm okay with that.
With,
Yeah.
But if you guys aren't doing what you want to do, I'm just,
well, no, I was gonna say I've had the same, I was gonna say at least pull the dump truck and pup out, but like I say, the side dump, to me, they're gonna be basically the same length, pretty much. But, yeah, until Matt is able to really, look at the whole situation. But as far as what's going up in the pit, I think they've got that covered, and the amount of material that's gonna be moved around, I think they pretty well covered that. But it's just that access onto the road with the, traffic study. You know, I don't see how we can say too much more about that. But if we were, at this point, go with Brady's suggestion of just an end dump for right now, as opposed to a side dump.
And are you saying and end up with language in there allowing additional per approval from engineering?
yeah. Another thing too that concerns me with them lengths, not only the access there, I drove up there, it's a beautiful place, the canyon, I hadn't spent any time up there before, and I don't know how much traffic is up there in the summer, never been up there. But there's many points where, especially down the canyon, the taper of the side, there is no 2-4 feet side, the shoulder, the hillside comes right to the edge of the road. And if a truck's coming down on them corners, he's gonna have to be over the yellow line. Nowhere to go on this side, so that's my concern with a longer vehicle. Just the safety of the people, but hopefully nothing happens.
I would just point out that Matt did say that he was okay with a side dump. So if we put in that language that said it was per approval of engineering, I mean, he's given that, maybe not in writing, but verbally in this discussion. So what would be your proposed language there? You're
Just
good
with the pending, I'm okay with it.
pending approval from engineering for additional vehicle types?
And
I
is
would
that,
be okay with that. With the, yeah, pending, so dump truck for sure, and pending engineering is what you came with a dump truck and pup and a side dump. Those would be pending.
About, I mean, just with the original wording there, you know, you could take the second sentence, the use of other vehicles, trailers, or other wheeled devices is prohibited unless approved by the
Unless approved by
county
county engineering. I'm looking at Matt. You all right with that, Matt?
It's just this, on the original wording, the second sentence said, the use of other vehicles, trailers, or other wheeled devices is prohibited unless approved by the county engineer.
It's just as long as the other truck with the button. What's the difference? Takes the same amount of time to get it on the road.
and my only question for the commission is, what does the approval of engineering look like, if not the fact that the engineer just approved side dumps?
Yeah.
And I would, and without getting adversarial, I encourage the commission to realize that under a CUP, there has to be evidence of a negative impact that cannot be reasonably mitigated, or evidence of a negative impact that can be mitigated by the enactment of the condition. And the traffic study specifically looked at up to a Type 12 vehicle and found that there were no impacts of use types by up to a Type 12 vehicle. So while applicant is willing to self-regulate the pup and dump until such time as the engineering department can get a more thorough investigation, where engineering has already indicated that a side dump is acceptable, we would object to a limitation that doesn't have its basis even in the county's own independent traffic study. But I'll defer to Matt.
What about the county's code? There is no.
I would also object to public comment. Public comment was permitted and has been had, and this is not a public hearing.
It's gonna be, the county has its own equipment, right? We're involved in construction as well, so the county often takes their own pups, or not their pups, but their side dumps up that canyon, right? We have drivers that can give us feedback on different things. One of the things that the county doesn't have is these larger, we have smaller pups, but we don't have the larger pups that the applicant has requested. So we are familiar with the side dumps and those types of things. And the county is also held by what's allowed by the state code on what the trucks and weights and lengths and all that are. So it's very difficult for the county to enact tighter restrictions on lengths, widths, trucks that's already approved by the state. So like load limits and those types of things. So what the engineering department is looking for is not to try to restrict more of those types of operations. It's more time to figure out how we can try to help with public safety and those types of things along there for some of those larger vehicles that we just don't have experience with, nor have we had time to do a proper analysis of those types of things that Brady talked about, you know, crossing the yellow line, or, you know, there's some of those things that we need to look at. So we would be, for them to limit to dump trucks, you know, that's gonna, in engineering's opinion, that's gonna take more time to excavate this material. And so that's, now you're gonna be looking at longer than 3 years, so.
Correct.
We feel like with some safety measures and maybe some signage and some other things that we can try to mitigate some of those things. And right now, we're just asking for more time, specifically for those larger pup trailers, those 4-axle pup trailers with the long drawbars. And they're gonna be, in our opinion, in our engineering opinion, they're worse than, for overhang and site visibility and those things. They're gonna have more impact on overhang than strictly just a side dump. So side dumps are still gonna have some of those same things, but if we can mitigate that and we can look at the impacts for the most severe case of that, then that would also take care of the side dumps at that point too, so.
Thanks for clarifying that, Matt.
Yeah,
I
but
appreciate
Matt,
that.
when you say you're requesting more time for analysis, wouldn't it make sense to get that figured out before we approve this?
If possible for those, yes, but if those specific vehicles are prohibited until that point, we felt like that was a happy balance from continuation, so. If the council feels like there needs to be tighter restrictions and they wanna reduce that further, you know, that's theirs, but engineering is just recommending that for those larger ones, we have more opportunity. The traffic impact study hasn't been back very long, some of those conditions, you know, it's been just recently, I don't recall a meeting with the applicant where they specifically talked about those vehicles. So some of that information just came to our department just recently as an official request. And so that's why we don't want to delay the process any longer, but we also want to make sure that we've done our due diligence for health, safety, and access up and down that road, so.
Okay.
Does that help answer your
I guess,
question?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just concerned that maybe we're getting off in the weeds a little bit because, you know, we're talking about land use, and how someone drives once they get on the road is a little beyond the scope of where we are. So if the road gets narrower or farther down the road, that's a little beyond where we need to be. I think we probably ought to be focusing back onto the property a little bit. We recognize those are, you know, valid concerns. I mean, most of the comments that I read talked about farther up and down the canyon, but I think we ought to probably.
Yeah, just for, at least in terms of my comments, I'm strictly focused on ingress and egress.
Yeah.
That's- Just to be clear. That's where my concern is, yeah.
The road's not 20 feet.
I would object to public.
anywhere.
Okay,
And we will maybe talk about public comments, but please, if the public would just hold your comments until that time that we do that. Okay. Commission, what do you propose?
sorry, I distracted you.
No,
You-
you're
you were-
absolutely-
You were ready to go, and then I.
No, I think you're absolutely, those are great comments on this. The applicants come up with some amendments that I think some of these make a lot of sense, but that one was the major one. I think we've had good comment from engineering, and it's just what this commission wants to do. The LOI was as it was, but an amendment's been put forward, potential amendment, and commission make your determination what you want to vote on.
I've had a very passionate calls from people in the past couple of days. This is a very hot topic, so I'd recommend before you make a vote or a recommendation.
Yes.
You'd allow public comment.
Yes.
I would object because public comment was not noticed, and as a result, the calls that I received of individuals who wanted to advocate on behalf of this project, I indicated to them that this was not a meeting for public comment, and it was not noticed as such, and so those individuals are not here. So the danger of having public comment when it wasn't noticed for public comment, when it wasn't on the schedule for public comment, and when we were not anticipating public comment, is that the individuals who the commission heard from on the last occasion are not here. Because they called my office, they asked if this was a meeting for public comment, and I made very clear that it was not a meeting for public comment.
What's that?
They sent, we got positive comments sent in too, some, they're probably the same individuals, potentially, and we can have public comment on any item if we choose during the meeting, even if it's not noticed.
Yeah.
We can allow
It's not a
public comment.
public hearing.
Yeah, not a public hearing, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Hey, I'll just go ahead and touch on my other concerns and keep them to the pit area. Just to clarify, I feel that my track record, I'm very supportive of gravel pits. We need them. My whole concern with this gravel pit is both the history of the non-compliance as well as the accessibility. If it was able to go over the hill, I'd say get her done. But last meeting, we had the gravel pit there on the opposite side of the mountain, Crow Mountain. There was by far less people impacted by that pit, or would have been. It's an open area, the noise would travel clear over the valley. There was so many points of that pit that would have been less impactful other than the visual, and it was shut down with no comment. I attribute that partly to the industrial approach versus a gravel pit. But again, sticking to the subject here, I'm just telling you now, I'm not in favor of this, and you can't convince me to go otherwise. I support the commission and how you vote. But if it was to go, I have a concern with the hours of operation. They proposed 8 to 6 during the school year. I would propose 8 to 6 all year. The people that work, the people that enjoy that canyon are gonna be out in the early hours. Again, we're out of the pit area, but I think it would be less impact on the people. If you choose to leave it as 6, that's awesome. In relation to the water truck, we definitely want the water truck, whatever that confusion is on either way. My understanding is we just don't want the water truck filled out of the pit area until that's resolved, but wherever else they need the water truck, because the biggest impact on the people of that canyon, in my opinion, is twofold: noise and dust. And anyway, that if this proceeds, that has to be mitigated at every possible level. It don't matter if we have single dump trucks running out of it. Their brakes are squeaking louder than the Jake brake. That can't be allowed. That touches on signage was mentioned. I'm fine if they do or don't do signs. I just felt that it might be beneficial if they put trucks entering the road a certain distance. I know all the other roads tend to have that where trucks are entering the road, just to caution people that aren't aware of it. And then I had a question on the number of loads per week with how much advance notice approval, if they could just call on or just send an email in on a Wednesday afternoon, say we're at our 50 loads, or what the process was there. And then my final concern or question is, once again, solely based off of the history of non-compliance, if we approve this, if the commission approves this tonight with the 26 or so, 24 conditions, and they're breaking this one and they're breaking that one, what's going to happen? I mean, the county don't have enforcement now for half of our other stuff. How can they have somebody sitting up there enforcing all this stuff? So what's going to happen if these items aren't adhered to? Thank you.
Thanks for your.
There's too many, I couldn't get notes on all of them.
Well, I tried to keep it to the pit.
I think one of your comments there, they're all good perceptions, or all good comments on that. One of those was what about approval for additional loads? And Connor, do you have any input on what that process would be? Because there's a notification in the notices there, but is it just, hey, we're gonna go over?
That's kind of the impression I got when I read that. I don't see any enforcement mechanism. Like, hey, we're doing it. That's what it reads to me. There's not necessarily any kind of way we can say yes, no. It's just, it's surface level. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I had maybe a couple, I agreed with a few years, Brady, especially on those hours of operation. That 6 a.m. as close as that comes to a couple of those homes right before they get on the road seemed that could be shortened, especially if they're only doing that many loads a day. Those 2 hours aren't going to change them that much. And the other one I had, and I don't know if we can add this as a condition or not, but if we're looking at that quantity that's got to come out of there, depending on how they choose to do that, it looks to me like that could be done fairly quickly, to get that many cubic yards or tons, whichever way you're calculating, out of there. And instead of, if we're going to put those impacts on those residents, the people that use the road, the people that live there, that we could shorten that condition, right? Instead of going for 3 years, if you could get everything in place, that could be done in a one season pretty easily with the number of trips they're proposing to do a day. And granted, they're trying to look for places to get rid of that at no cost, right, to take it, and that I would think would be easier than selling it, because people will take stuff for free if there's a construction project going on pretty readily. So that would be one proposal I would have, is if we're going to put those impositions on the residents that live there, that we look at a way to potentially shorten that to where they do it over one season and then it's shut down, and then they start the project of remediation of the ground and get that back to producing their agricultural crops they're looking to produce there.
Okay. Anybody else?
So, the fugitive dust control mitigation plan, has that been submitted to the DEQ yet?
So the fugitive dust control mitigation plan is the magnesium chloride that's listed, and it will be done up to industry standards. So that's just, it's magnesium, there's no real method for submitting a dust mitigation plan, it's just as.
So I'm
dust is-
looking on the DEQ page right here. Fugitive dust control requirements for non-attainment areas, stationary source compliance for Box Elder, Cache, Davis, Salt Lake, Tooele, Utah, and Weber counties. Fugitive dust in Cache County is a mandatory
Then
for any site a quarter acre or larger.
it's under our SWIP permit, and we do have that SWIP permit, yes.
You do have it, it's not in the packet, I didn't see it in the packet.
Yeah, SWIP only relates to construction. That's the only land disturbance permit they have at this time. I'd have to talk with April, our stormwater person, but that only covers construction.
So because I've been involved in Utah County and the fugitive dust is significantly impacting the fruit growers down there. And so the state, because of the impact on the neighborhoods and everything else, the state's really trying to make sure the gravel pits are compliant with them. And so you have to apply for a permit.
And that has been applied for under the stormwater permit that's currently in place. If there is the need for that under a different heading, I believe that would be under condition 18, which relates to the industrial activities. So to the extent that that fits, that would have a similar requirement. If I can briefly speak to the comments that have been raised.
Are you okay, Mr. Chairman, if we also limit the applicant until we've heard from everybody here and then get it all together?
We should
Yeah.
have
So
our
anyway, just
discussion.
because of the impact on the neighborhoods and that, we gotta have, that's gotta be part of the conditions too, that they've gotta have their dust mitigation.
Yeah,
As a
that's-
license.
it's a very common practice. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's easy to fill out too, that application.
Okay. All right. Any other, so add an additional condition that the applicant will complete the fugitive dust control requirements of the Utah Department of Environmental Quality.
DEQ, yeah.
This is you guys' area to see.
I think you can just amend number 19 to reflect that. That's what I would suggest.
Add the fugitive dust permit to 19.
Okay.
Can you bring Matt up here?
What's that?
Hey, Matt. Yeah, can you come up for a second? Does the land disturbance permit they have and the SWIP they have right now cover dust?
So engineering put a condition in there that once you reach this type of level of operation, the state doesn't allow the county to permit it, so they need to go in and get their permitting through the industrial side of the state.
And that was the condition, I think, that
That
we
is a
discussed,
condition,
was that they
yes.
would receive that permit from the state.
And that's, Val J, I don't have enough experience to know if that dust mitigation is part of that industrial permit through the state.
It's
Would it be equal to what you're talking about or not? So,
It's a separate plan.
It's a standalone,
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to do with
Normally,
stormwater.
those industrial side of things will have, the applicant prepare how they're going to, do their dust application. That's going to be similar to Geneva, Pisgah. All those guys will have to have that same permit coverage and try to, I just don't know what that permit and what the plan you're talking about, how they correlate and if they're equal or if the one you're talking about is more restrictive than the industrial permitting side of DEQ, so.
And I think the important part there is that they have the plan.
Yes.
Fill it out, have a plan, so that then, when there's issues, they can come back and say, and look at why are we having the dust escaping?
Right. And then, so that's why we kick them up. We don't, the state doesn't allow us to get coverage under that. And the industrial one's gonna cover a lot of the stormwater, so if there's water running off, where it's going, and those types of things. So other than that, so your question, Connor, about the land disturbance permit, that's more for construction of residential, or it's not a long-term permit. It's only valid for a certain period of time and only covers a certain type of work, so.
Okay. Are we satisfied with the amendments to conditions?
Did we get all yours written down?
Well, don't worry about me. I want you guys' opinion. I guess with the noise, if we were to address that, how do we address it? That's another thing. I remember, just like yesterday too, when we were talking about Geneva Rock opening that Newton pit out there, multiple folks brought up, we got to do a noise study on this. Well, it don't take a rocket scientist to know that when you're out in the middle of the valley with the wide open space, that sound dissipates. But when you're in a tight little valley, man, it ricochets, bings, bangs. So do we want to do anything with noise? And there was multiple videos, I don't know if any of you saw them, of trucks coming out of there, and they weren't even using a Jake brake, and I mean, you could hear the squeaking, squealing brakes long away from the scene. So do we want that in the canyon, or what do we want?
Yeah, and that was kind of my thinking, shortening the season to when it's done and just get it, if they are gonna deal with it, right, get it over with as quickly as possible instead of strung out for 3 years. Yeah, there may be other ways to mitigate it.
And I'll be honest with you, I would probably be I'd probably tend to support it myself if we're gonna knock this out and, get her done this summer and be done with it. If we're gonna contain it to the size that's projected and get it over and be done with it, I would support that. But yeah, 3 years, why do you need 3 years to haul out the identified material?
Okay. Okay. So back to our amendments.
Have to make a motion.
Just want to hear your thoughts.
I would love for somebody to make a motion with all the amendments in there.
Yeah, exactly.
The time one we'd have to add in there, right, because there's not that's in the earlier, it's not one of the conditions of hours of operations, we'd have to add one, if we do want to limit that from 8 to 6 year round. Which most of it's gonna happen anyway, in the summertime.
And I would just say, we're kind of talking about we're gonna limit our time, but we're also limiting the hours of operation. And so, if we want to cut down how long this takes, if we limit that may make it more difficult.
If we do limit to one summer, I could be more open to the 6 to 8, but, yeah, because that gives you plenty of time to get 10 loads out of there a day.
For me, I look at it as, we're trying to mitigate the noise, disturbance and that sort of thing. And so that's what the hours of operation are addressing.
A lot of people
And the noise for the residences that are in the immediate vicinity of the intersection. What I'm thinking about, right? The purpose of a CUP is to come up with mitigation measures to mitigate those effects, things like noise and dust, specifically in the language. And so those are the details that we're talking about. And for me, I certainly would be pretty disappointed to live in a house and have large trucks driving by at 6 a.m. 8 a.m. seems more reasonable to me.
Okay. And are you proposing that, let's see, which condition is that?
It's not one, it's just in their proposal up above, so it's not a condition, so we would have to add that as a.
Okay.
It'd probably fit
They
with
would have
number
to-
4.
they would just have to
You could
amend
put it in addition to the days not used, that
Hours of operation.
they run
Yeah.
from 8 to 6 on the days that they do run.
Yeah, you could add it to there,
In condition 4?
yeah, that's talking about operation times.
That's 8 to 6. What was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we want to, because I don't think sound is addressed. We maybe could put it with, Val J, does that study do anything with noise or strictly dust?
That was just a dust mitigation.
And you incorporated that with 19? Fugitive permit. So is there anything there that we could incorporate the noise?
What did we do on the Geneva? How did?
Well, if we sit here today and ask for a noise impact study, we're just gonna prolong it.
Yeah, no.
And I'm not suggesting that we do that, but
I just
we've
raised-
got to identify it because whether it's Jake breaks, Smithfield City specifically said in their letter, no Jake breaks allowed. But if the people in the city don't have to put up with it, why should these people that live right there have to put up with that noise? Whether it be Jake breaks or squealing breaks.
Well, if the brakes are legal, I don't know how you can restrict that.
Yeah,
I mean, coming out of a pit, you're gonna squeal. You
Yeah,
got dust on your
you're
brake
still
by the
picking
time you
up
come
dust.
out. I don't know how you can change that.
Yeah.
We're all thinking it.
You know, the only restriction I can see with the noise is just the limitation that it's a temporary
Yeah.
use, and there's a maximum
Yeah.
number of vehicles or trips per day, that sort of thing, and
An hour.
it's really done, yeah, and
Hours of operation.
Okay.
but, you know, I don't know if there's anything else you can do.
Mr. Chairman, where we advertise that public hearing, should we better jump to it?
We could hold this,
We gotta just satisfy gentlemen there.
people that came for the public hearing.
Correct.
Hi. Yep, these two don't have any control over anything.
Yeah, we could do.
What do you think?
Are we to the point of taking action on this one, or?
I don't,
Think,
I think we might want to hear some public comment before. I would prefer.
I'm
We're-
sorry.
we're discussing that right now,
We're going
sir.
to discuss it. All right, should we will move to the public hearing, the initial public hearing, and then we'll come back to this discussion. Okay. Move to item number 2, public hearing for the rezone, the CS rezone,
Yeah, do those two public hearings quick.
and we will get those public hearings out of the way.
They should go pretty quick. Motion for that?
I'd make a motion that we go to those 2 public hearings before we come back to finish this discussion.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Connor, can we hear about the rezone, CS rezone?
Yeah. So the that was a good start. Rezone, CS rezone. So it's a request to apply the public infrastructure overlay onto 40 acres in the A10 zone. This rezone may allow the parcel to establish uses permitted by the public infrastructure overlay. A rezone request is general in nature, so it's not tied to any one specific project. So the property does match the configuration had on August 8th, 2006, and it is legal. The schedule of zoning uses, things that it can do inside of this zone is build a utility facility transmission, telecommunication facility major, telecommunication facility minor, public airport, and solid waste facilities. Adjacent uses, the properties to the north, east, and south of the subject parcel are primarily used for agricultural purposes, while the property to the west is used for a mix of recreational and agricultural purposes. The nearest parcel in the county that has public infrastructure overlay is located 8 miles to the southeast of the subject parcel. A particular note, though, is that the Cash Junction Industrial Park rezone, which was done in 2007, is ordinance 2007-12, rezoned it to industrial, but it was never developed. It's currently not in any annexation area. So according to the Cache County General Plan, it's in the agricultural and ranching zone. So the location of these is private agricultural landscapes in the Cache Valley outside of municipalities. Example areas include most of the valley. Purpose and character, agriculture and rangeland uses on private lands under conservation easements, no public access, are expected to continue in the valley. Separation from these dense residential developments is advantageous. The agricultural landscape provides separation between adjacent municipalities and protects suitable soils. Preferred land uses includes agriculture, ranching, rural residential uses at densities of less than 1 unit per 10 acres, conservation easements and conserved public lands, agritourism. Secondary land uses includes industrial and commercial uses directly supportive of agriculture, so processing, packaging, and distribution. Clustered subdivision developments, outdoor recreation, and farm worker housing. Discouraged uses includes residential developments at densities of greater than 1 unit per 10 acres if not clustered. Subdivision development, commercial office, commercial retail, flex office / industrial, and heavy industrial. So the roadway right now, it's a major collector. So it's at 3000 north of Black Rock Road. It's south of the subject parcel. It mainly provides access to agricultural fields and serves as a through access from Benson to SR 23. It's maintained by the county year-round, and because it does not have a posted speed limit, defaults to a speed limit of 55 miles per hour. Has an existing width of 24 feet, a 66-foot right-of-way, 1 foot wide paved shoulder, 2 foot wide gravel shoulder, a clear zone of 24 feet and is paved. It's considered substandard as the right-of-way, paved shoulder, gravel shoulder, and clear zone. And it currently has a public-private road spacing of 300 feet and has a commercial, residential, and farm access spacing of 200 feet. The Cache County Fire District did not have any comments. Public notice was posted to the Utah Public Notice website on the 21st of February 2025. Notices were posted in 3 public places on 21st of February 2025. And notices were mailed to all property owners within 300 feet on the 21st of February 2025. We haven't received any written comment. We don't have a recommendation, but we'll have the Planning Commission draft a letter to County Council.
Okay. Commissioner, we want to hear from the applicant. Is the applicant here? Okay.
Hello, my name is Keaton Haviland. I own a company here locally called Clean Slate, and that's what this ground's pertaining to. I don't know what specific information you're looking for. Happy to answer anything you're looking for.
Gibbs, this is in public infrastructure, and so my question is, how does it fit into the uses within the public infrastructure overlay? Generally, when we see this, it's for a telecommunication tower or something like that.
You bet. Yeah, so we're actually in the garbage business. We hold the contract for we partner with Providence City. We do garbage collection, and we also rent dumpsters for different companies, things like that. A lot of the material that we haul is organic. The purpose and goal of this through the state for any compost or recycling facility, they consider that a solid waste facility. Everything that we've looked at is that's what it would be geared toward. As far as the zoning goes.
A solid waste facility, you're talking a landfill, or?
No, it's not a landfill. No, this would be a compost facility, potentially down the road, a location that we could isolate more materials and recycle. Predominantly, majority of the land would be used for composting and finding another use for organic matter, similar to like what you see with Miller's Compost in Hiram. Not near to that scale or anything like that, but just a facility that we can essentially recycle on.
Okay.
What's the raw material?
Majority would be wood. We haul for a couple of the local food manufacturers, so there may be down the road opportunities and needs to compost some of that material, but we haul hundreds of loads a month of mostly wood products that we would then take and compost that instead of putting it in the landfill.
What type of permitting process with the state is there for that?
It's about a year-long process, so depending on what they're willing to let us do and not do, we would put in a permit to them. Basically, they notify any neighbors, I think within 500 feet.
They make sure we have requirements as far as like groundwater seepage and wetlands, things like that.
I think that was my big question, because knowing that piece of ground in the fields around there, pretty easy to see on that map, right? There's some pretty critical natural drainages through the middle of that.
You bet.
That have got to be maintained to drain everything to the west. Those drain probably hundreds, if not thousands of acres in the spring runoff, and how that would be maintained and also contain the contamination, I think would be my biggest concern with just knowing that piece of ground was what if you start composting, the wood's not that big a deal, right? But if we start food waste and stuff like that, right, it becomes pretty critical, because if we go a half a mile to the east, we have Cutler Reservoir that has a TMDL on it for nutrient impairment.
You bet. So
Seems like a pretty, maybe not the greatest site for that.
So two thoughts there. The south part where you kind of see that there's a tree there and kind of a pond. There's actually a well there with a pipe coming out of the ground with free flowing water. Our intent would be, if we purchase the ground, to cap that. We can absolutely work with the county or whoever that would be to watch that. Everything that I can tell on that south kind of runoff is coming from that well or whatever, natural well or whatever you want to call it, but it's coming out of the ground with a pipe. It runs like a hose spigot, just 24/7. The second is, we have honestly scoured the county high and low for a location that would be suitable, that's out of town, not near people. That site is probably a little bit big. That 40 acres is probably bigger than we need. But like I said, we've scoured the valley and staying within the limitations that the county require, or the state requires, as far as distance from a operating business and distance from a residence that's close to a consistent highway that's got a road. This is the best we've been able to find.
It sounds like an artesian well to me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's gonna be a water right associated with it,
Yeah.
so if it's not your water right.
You may not be able to cap that.
Yeah.
Is what he's
Well,
saying.
yeah. I mean, the water right, we are purchasing the water right with the ground. I don't know. I'm not super familiar about
We'd have to see how
that.
many are associated with that potentially, because there might be someone downstream.
I would say there's enough ground there that we would happily work with the county as far as any limitations and working around that, and culverting anything we would need to or anything like that. I personally don't foresee that being an issue, and go through that.
Mr. Chairman, you may have clarified this, but there'll be no way of garbage, paper, plastic, anything else?
So if there was anything, it would be, so you can have a compost facility, and then you can also have a transfer station. In order to do any recycling, the state deems that a transfer station. At some point, there's going to be, the Logan landfill will cap there, and there will be additional need for locations to take waste. Our intent of this would be this construction debris, which is wood, concrete, that type of material. That would be a possibility down the road. The state is extremely strict.
Is we can't even consider anything that's gonna be even close to Clarkston. We cannot have
He's talking about
stuff
the landfill.
leaving the site, plastic, paper blown away.
I understand.
It's gotta be
Absolutely. Yeah, no, in most cases, and there's, we've researched different facilities, there's, on the transfer station side, especially because we're a private entity and not a government entity, we're looked at pretty closely. I mean, that's fair. We'd have to go through, municipal approval and restrictions as well as state. UDEC is all over that.
Mr. Chairman, the gentleman that was upset and left, Mr. Bullen, did he give any comment? He's got the parcels directly across the street.
He gave no comment other than frustration with how long the meeting was.
Yeah, we should have broke.
Gotta come to the short ones, those long ones.
Can you just zoom out a little bit, please, Connor? Thank you.
I have a question. I have a concern about the water issue and how that is. Have you had any kind of environmental impact study done on that?
That would be down the road.
Directly across.
The state limitations are, no water source can be, no running water source like, a river, reservoir, or anything like that is at least 1,000 feet away. In the composting side of things, usually what they'll require you to do is scrape the topsoil. There's a couple different options that they have you do in order to compost on a commercial scale. It would be very similar to what you see with a lot of the dairies and different outfits around that are composting.
Okay, any other
So-
questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you'll have to get permitted through the state to have your operation, and they're gonna require you to self-contain everything.
Yeah, so depending, I mean, they'll come out and look at the site. We would engineer either berm it, there would be basically a retention basin for, so there's no water runoff and anything like that. And we work with the state in the kind of initial permitting process with an engineer.
And is this, Connor, one that would have to come back for a conditional use permit if the rezone is approved?
But as discussed, we've looked for a piece of ground for close to 2 years now that is within proximity to Logan. The 23 and the 30 kind of give us fairly good access, but that's away from houses and people and water. We haven't taken that lightly. We've tried to find a place that would be suitable for the county.
And are you gonna be able to have the option, maybe it's in the future, to be able to take stuff from other companies that do similar to you that once Logan City kind of shuts down, taking some of their stuff there potentially in the future, would you be able to take stuff from other haulers?
The recycled material potentially, I believe we'd have to go through that conditional use process. So through the state alone, there's 3 different permit processes that we would have to go to depending on composting, recycling, transfer station, all 3 of those operations.
Any other questions for the applicant? Brian?
We were talking about gravel earlier. You're gonna need a lot.
I was gonna say, have you
I'm
been
really
on that
familiar.
ground in the
I've
spring?
had 2 large 4-wheel drive tractors hooked to a third on that property, trying to get out, so,
It's bottomless.
chain, so, good luck.
Okay.
Take a foot of topsoil off and bring 3 feet of rock back.
You bet.
Have you had any conversation, the real question was with the model airplane folks there?
We have not talked to them. The state, the only thing that we've reviewed is, as we were looking for a suitable location, the state requirements are that we cannot be, I think it's within 500 or 1,000 feet of any business that operates 8 to 5 on a normal business day. Most of what I haven't been out there but a few times, but from what I've heard and seen is Saturdays, but I have not had direct communication with them.
They're noisy neighbors. I mean, when they're flying.
Sure.
Having farmed all around there, they're nice people, but
Sure.
that's why they're in that location, and that's why they went there. I would hope that you'll be able to get along with them.
You bet. Yeah. I mean, we want to be good neighbors. Happy to discuss it with them. I just haven't had a contact.
Okay.
If there's no further questions, Mr. Chairman, I'd move we open the public hearing.
We have a motion?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have opened the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone from the public here to comment on this? If so, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move we close the public hearing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, what do we want to do on this one?
I'd like to say that from what was indicated earlier, that he compared it to Miller's Blue Ribbon out there, and this is 40 acres. That's probably, if it's 20, I'd be surprised. I think it's probably on 5 acres. So if we rezone this, it gives an option out there to bring in quite a few others that might find a need for a facility that's already zoned for waste management.
Correct.
And so I have that concern. That's, as far as being out where it doesn't bother anybody for another 100 years, that might be a good place. But also, I think he's picked a spot with the water situation there that you've been a long time getting that ready to go. But that's his problem. That's not a rezone thing. But
It might only be 20 acres when he avoids all the areas
yeah,
that
by the time you
have
get away
water
from that,
issues.
that scenario, because you'll have the Corps of Engineers in the middle of that too.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess I would be not inclined for approval.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item?
I see that side, but I also see the side as private companies that are starting to do some of this waste management more than the cities now, as Logan City just does theirs now, and other cities are trying to figure out how to do theirs, and the other private companies. There may become a bigger need for something like this as we grow as a community, right? We got to get rid of our waste, and if we can have a true recycling facility, to me, that whether this is the spot for that or not, I don't know, but it's something we need to get rid of those materials, right? That the Logan landfill now, even for green waste, right? They charge so much, and so that'll continue to have less people taking stuff there potentially. And whether they decide to burn that at their house instead of hauling it there, or finding somewhere else to take it where it could be recycled.
I think the need is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you
Yeah, and so,
completely. Yeah.
but I think if they can meet, for me, if they can meet all the state permitting to get through on a piece like this, I still question whether those hurdles can be overcome with those drainages through there. So they may not, right? It may still die. But for me, if they can make it work and meet all the environmental permitting that's required for that, I would be all right with it there. But again, there's not only aside from that, but how much rock they're gonna have to haul in to be able to use that 9 months of the year is a pretty big job.
Any other comments before I give my take on it? I look at this and I asked the question, is this going to be a landfill? And the answer was no. And then it was, well, maybe construction and demolition debris eventually, when we do any rezone, the potential other consequences that come from that. And so for me, I have to look at this and say, this is a potential landfill site. And so, because once you make the zoning change, then it's just a conditional use. And that permitted process is a lot easier than this. And so for me personally, I look at this and say, not an area that I would say would be conducive for that. And so that's where I'll make my decision around. Thoughts? I will accept a motion.
Somebody that's more passionate.
Lane, are you going first or me?
I would make the motion of denial of option 1.
Okay. We have a motion?
With the two conclusions, right?
Oh, yes, 2 conclusions. Yes, there are.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. All right. And that rezone you'll have another opportunity with the county council for that one. All right, we'll move on to action item 3. This is the Tanner Nicole Godfrey home rezone, and I'm going to make a declaration on this. The applicants are relatives of mine. I have no financial interest in this application at all. Connor.
Perfect. All right, the Tanner and Nicole Godfrey home rezone. It's a request to rezone 10.49 acres from the A10 zone to the RU2 zone. This rezone may allow the parcel to establish uses permitted in the rural 2 zone. Approval of this zone will grant this parcel a maximum potential of 5 lots. As a reminder, rezone request is general in nature, not necessarily tied to any one project. The parcels do match the parcel matches the configuration out of August 8, 2006 and is legal. The RU2 zone allows for a variety of uses with the approval of zoning clearance and a conditional use permit. These uses include single-family dwelling, foster home, accessory apartment, accessory/agricultural structures, home-based business, seasonal cabin, residential living facilities, home-based kennel, bed and breakfast inn, public uses, religious meeting house, utility facility distribution, utility facility service, agricultural production, farm stand, boarding facility, and site grading. Adjacent uses, the properties to the south and west are primarily a mix of residential and agricultural. Properties to the north are primarily agricultural, and properties to the east are primarily residential. The nearest parcel in the county that's in the RU2 zone is located 0.85 miles to the west of the subject property. The Logan City municipal boundary is located 400 feet to the east of the subject property. So the Dowgs Minor rezone, subdivision rezone, the one located just a little under a mile away, was a request to rezone 12.82 acres from the A10 zone to the RU2 zone, and was approved by County Council on June 11, 2013 as Ordinance 2013-10. And then to the east, the Meadowbrook subdivision Phase 5, which is located 400 feet away, is inside of Logan City limits, is an existing subdivision. It has a density of 1 home per 1/5 acre. Annexation areas, the subject property is located in the Logan City future annexation area. Okay, so this is located in the general, agriculture and ranching. So location, private agricultural landscapes in Cache Valley outside of municipalities. Example areas include most of the valley. Purpose and character, agricultural and rangeland uses on private lands under conservation easements are expected to continue in the valley. Separation from dense residential developments is advantageous. The agricultural landscape provides separation between adjacent municipalities and protects suitable soils. Preferred land uses includes agriculture, ranching, rural residential uses at densities of less than 1 unit per 10 acres, conservation easements, conserved public lands, and agritourism. Secondary land uses includes industrial and commercial uses directly supportive of agriculture, so processing, packaging, and distribution. Clustered subdivision developments, outdoor recreation, farm worker housing, and discouraged uses includes residential developments at densities of greater than 1 unit per 10 acres, if not in a clustered subdivision development, commercial office, commercial retail, flex office/industrial, and heavy industrial. It's also in the urban expansion overlay, so the location of this is adjacent to city/town limits within municipal annexation areas, where future development could be accommodated with urban level services. As communities may provide additional information, these reference areas may be updated on future land use map without an adopted amendment to reflect the probable expansion of services within a 10 to 20 year time frame. Example areas include unincorporated enclaves between or within cities. Purpose and character, to provide for a unified municipal growth that aligns with the municipal land use plan and an approved annexation policy area. With the approved county intergovernmental agreement, if developed, these areas would need to be annexed into the neighboring community, which would facilitate service provision. Preferred land uses includes annexation within these areas should strive to accomplish the densities, intensities, and street patterns contained where urban level infrastructure is available. Affordable housing options are also appropriate in this area. Secondary land uses include civic, so meeting spaces, residential support uses, parks, medical, schools, fire, and police stations. So the roadway classification, it's a minor collector, so it's 2200 south, which is south of the subject parcel. This road provides access to agricultural fields and residential homes, is maintained by the county year-round, and has a posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour, has an existing width of 22 feet, a 50-foot right-of-way, 1 foot paved shoulder, 2 foot gravel shoulder, and a 5 to 10 foot clear zone, and is paved. Is considered substandard as a right-of-way, paved shoulder, gravel shoulder, and clear zone. Currently has a public-private road spacing of 300 feet, and has a commercial, residential, and farm access spacing of 200 feet. The Cache County Fire District didn't have any comments. Notice was posted to the Utah Public website, 3 public places, and was mailed to all property owners within 300 feet on the 21st of February, 2025. At the time of writing this, 1 public comment was received from Logan City. In the meantime, we received another one from the applicant. So that pretty much sums it up. We don't have a recommendation, but we'll help you draft a letter to County Council.
Okay, thank you very much. The applicant would like to come forward.
Hi, thank you to the commission for hearing our request tonight. I'm here with my wife, Nicole Godfrey. So we grew up here in the valley. I just grew up about 2 miles down the road from there in Young Ward. My wife's from Mendon. We live there on this property now with our 4 kids. So the intent behind this proposal would be to allow us to build an additional home on that property where we would live, raise our children, and that property is currently farmed, and we would like to continue to do that. The RU5 we felt was a more appropriate designation for that, to add 1 additional home there. However, that wasn't an option for us due to sensitive lands. Would you mind showing that on there? So with that pond and the slope there, that takes up about 3.5, almost 4 acres of the property, leaving about 6 acres of land that could be considered developable. And so with that, the RU5 wasn't an option for us to apply for that. And so kind of worst case scenario, or if you were to try to put as many houses there with that RU5 designation, it would allow you to put only 2 additional homes on there with those sensitive lands with that current RU5. Once again, our intent is just to build 1 home for us to live in and to continue to farm that property. So that's the intent of that. We love the property and intend to stay there for the rest of our lives, but just the house there is built in the early 60s, and we'd like to kind of have a little bit of a bigger space and updated home for us eventually.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
I really appreciated that, the comments that you submitted to clarify that. That was the same question I had. It was obvious that the parcel had some sensitive lands on it, and I was assuming, but it was good to get that clarification, because 3 lots is different than 5, certainly.
For sure. For sure.
And for me, it's 400 feet from a pretty high density subdivision. It's and also that close to the existing municipal boundary. So I don't have any major concerns with this rezone request.
Yeah, I was the same. This is, I mean, if we look at where RU2 is supposed to be, this is where it is, right? Next to or almost adjacent to current city boundaries that have high density, and then we go to, a little lower density than RU5, and then an A10, and even if it was the 5 lots there, right, it still fits the feel of that area as you phase out into what will at some point be, unfortunately, another high density probably on the other side of that at some point. But if we can slow that down and spread it out, to me, this is exactly where it should go.
I've just motioned to the chairman. I'd recommend let's do the public hearing now. These folks have been waiting a long time, if that's okay.
That's your motion.
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anyone here to comment on the Tanner Nicole Godfrey home rezone?
We got one.
Famous person right here.
Jake Israelson, I'm a neighbor of Tanner, and we're glad to have him there. I just clarify the number of houses that could be put on that with the sensitive areas there.
The maximum would be 2 additional.
Two additional, okay. Yep. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. What do you want to do? Have a motion?
If we don't have any other comments, I would be ready to make a motion.
Make a motion.
I'd make a motion to recommend approval, option number 2 with the 4 conclusions. the
Okay,
county council.
Have a motion?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I will abstain just to be.
It's after the fact, but the clarification also resolved my concerns. That was good.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Okay. Back to the Cronquist Minor Extraction CUP rezone. We could probably use some wrestling language in this. It's time for the main event.
Main event.
Mr. Chairman, I would just
Better
say,
go stretch.
do your best to put guidelines.
Yes.
And thank
see if
you.
we can get out of here.
That was my
by our
next.
Regularly scheduled
And,
time.
and folks, we appreciate everybody and your interest in this, and so we will entertain public comment because you came and are interested in this. However, we do ask that you would keep your comments to, do we have 3 minutes on there? I think that's what we say. 3 minutes, and if somebody has already mentioned the same comment that you have said, let's maybe not try to repeat things over and over again. If you have some new information to bring to that, those are the comments that we'd like to have. We have entertained a lot of public comment through the multiple times that we've heard this. So we will open some time for public comment on that, and but we will, Commission, do we want to limit that to a certain time frame?
Do you want to see how many people want to
How
make
many
a
people would
comment?
like to comment on this? Just a few?
Well, we only got 3. So
Okay, if we limit it to three minutes, I think that's
only
probably,
10
that's
minutes.
probably reasonable, so.
When you come forward to make your public comment, please state your name. Okay.
State your name for the record, and please sign in if you have not, so we have the spelling.
My name's Bobby Danzy. I sent the county an email, and I just kind of went through a few things. I didn't have time to go through a lot because I just got the email. The operation, on page 2C, operation employee Birch Creek is owned by the applicant. So there obviously is full-time people that are on site at all times because he is the owner also of the property. 600 loads, that's 1,200 trips past my house. It already is full of dust. Why should you guys allow this? It's destroying my home, my peace, my family, and my enjoyment. We can't even have a swimming pool for hell's sakes, and I have 2 kids. I would like to enjoy the few years that I have left of them living with me before they go to college. It's caused medical bills, emotional distress, health problems. The county's seen my daughter's medical bills. My daughter has asthma. It endangers my family, my home, my property, every trip past my house. Page 5, the flooding. You guys got the video, right? I don't know if all of you did, but I tagged who I could in it. They're completely flooding me out. I had to call Jenny, his wife. I actually have the text message also. They had to put a brim up because when they installed the fence to become code to have a gravel pit, they filled in the ditch, which is what was holding their runoff. He filled it in to build his ditch. I have pictures, I have videos. We can put them up there too if you want. When he filled in that ditch, it has caused all the water to run directly into the back of my house and down my driveway, which caused mold in my back room and in where my bedroom is. Well, it was. I've moved into a different part of the house because of the mold. So the drainage, it is an issue. And it just keeps getting worse with the amount of grass and dirt and whatever else you guys let him take off of there. It can't keep happening. Well, I went over the dust. It's unbearable in my home. The county and all of this staff have pictures, and you guys actually have my filters that I brought, and I gave to Taylor and Sharice, my actual filters out of my house. You also have Kimmer's filters out of his house. They're so dirty that our furnaces and our heaters aren't even operating right. And this is changing them out monthly. The staff, you guys kind of went over that. You don't have enough staff to make sure that he's in compliance, so you rely on us in the county.
We're
And-
about 5 minutes in, so
Okay.
thank you.
That's not really fair. With the road, on Matt Phillips' paper that he put in the paper.
Used your time, thank you.
Okay.
Can we get the house on a picture up here so you can see it?
Where do you want it at?
So, show where Bobby's house is. 20 feet from the road.
20 feet from my house.
From the house.
So show the road that's going up past Bobby's, where they haul out. So, okay, so go back down. So you can see where they're headed right towards her house. And then they have to make a turn and go around. And I mean, I feel like you guys are laughing at us. And have you guys drove up there? Have you drove up Smithville Canyon and looked at the road? So those windy turns, there's one spot, if you guys have seen it, that's straight off. And it's at least a 10-foot drop off. We have buses that still come at 8:30 in the morning. We have a handicap bus that comes at 8:30 in the morning and comes back at noon. We have 2 buses in the afternoon that come up. And as far as the road, how much traffic there is on there, I mean, I looked at the last, whatever it was that you guys did, the traffic thing that happened. I sat up there on the canyon, and in 1 hour, I counted 32 cars. The next time I sat there for 2 hours, and that was between 4 and 6 at night, and there was 53 cars. I mean, it is going to impact us, and it's scary because it's our families that are driving it all the time. And it's not fair. I mean, my dad had a gravel pit, and the county shut him down because the road wasn't safe to drive him on. They shut it off, and that was years ago when there was half the traffic. And now we have our kids that are young that are driving those roads, and if there's spots that they can't pass them, it's really not fair. I mean, if Sean seriously, like, do you guys honestly believe that he's paying a person to drive the truck, wear and tear on the truck, gas in the truck, to just go give it away? I mean, we have a gravel pit up there that my dad had that got shut down that he can fill. If he's really that serious that he's giving it away to protect the Canyon Road and us and our kids, why can't he do that? I mean, I just don't understand. I've sent pictures in, and I don't even know if you guys have seen them, where we measured the road with a tape measure. There's no way that road's 20 feet on any of those corners are 17 and a half feet. And we have followed him down the canyon. He cannot stay on his side of the road. Those trucks are 70 feet and 60 feet long, and they're 8.5 feet wide, the one that pulls the pub. That road is not, it's not adequate for that. And also in the summer, we have trucks pulling fifth wheel trailers up there. You guys have a place for people to camp up there that they pay to camp there. And they have to take the chance of running into one of them? I mean, it's really not fair. Especially where you already shut somebody off of that. And this isn't gonna end. You guys know it's been going on forever. Like Lyle Hilliard and Brian Kennel.
That's your time. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Carolee Stokes, and I'm here because I do appreciate how you guys have really debated this tonight. This is the most, out of all the meetings I've come to, that you've really, got deep down into this and debated it, which I really appreciate. But it's very simple to say no to this. With all the negatives against it, there's so much negative against this. Safety, the dust, the trucks, the roads, I live in Smithfield, and no, I'm not part of the family, but I do know the family, and I've lived in Smithfield a long time. I know that road. My sons and their kids all go up that road and do recreation and camp, and it is very unsafe. And there's so many joggers, and there's so many kids on bikes and people biking, and there's just you just got to live in Smithfield to realize how much that is used and how much for recreation. And for the city to even send in their opinion about this, I don't think that should be shrugged off. You even got Smithfield City and their mayor and their council people and everyone there that is against this. And that should be a huge impact to you guys, that even Smithfield City is against this. And it's just wrong, and it isn't right. And I know you guys, I know you guys know this. I respect you of knowing to do the right thing. And I just hope you say no to this and know that it's wrong, and it's very unsafe to do this. I don't want anybody to get hurt, because if somebody got killed or hurt up there, do you know who they'll come after? The county and Smithfield and his company for all this. And this isn't worth being approved for somebody getting hurt or something bad happening. It just isn't worth it. And I hope you're not worried about, getting sued because you denied it. I hope that isn't something that you're considering and worrying about, because that shouldn't be your worry. All this other stuff should be your worry, not about if they're going to sue you if you don't approve of this. Anyway, that's what I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Wayman, as usual, my name's Terry Cronquist. It's took up about an hour and a half, so I just got one thing to say. You guys said that we need gravel. They're not hauling gravel. They admittedly said it. They're not hauling gravel, and he can put every bit of it in my gravel pit. 10-4.
Any other comments?
Yes, I'm going. You want to listen to me? I'm Kim Cronquist. And all I've got to say is all year, all summer, the mothers with their baby carriages, with their small babies, with all them new homes going in up on top, you know what I'm saying, the new subdivisions below us. If one of them gets killed, the blood will be on your hands. Because I know it's going to happen. I see them up there every day. I watch them walk up there. I live up there.
Yeah. We don't have to listen to you do that.
Do what? I'm not doing anything. I'm just saying, I just hope none of them get killed. I'm hoping that don't happen.
That's not what you said. It's recorded.
Okay. Well then, I guess I'm sorry I said it.
Thank you.
But it's gonna happen.
Anyone else want to make a comment?
Again, I think the appreciation on this is you guys have delved deep. You've gone through some of the history. You've seen.
Can you please state your name?
Yes, please.
Sam Goebel, thank you. I think you've had a chance to look through the history, beginning in 2001 when the original one was shut down because of the safety issues and other related issues. But the first thing is there should be a right to get the gravel out of there. But if the reality is that we're twisting and turning on the standards to get it, you're creating a problem not necessarily just for Smithfield Canyon, but for the next time me, as an attorney, I bring a client in front of you and I bring up this example. Just as what was previously said, you did one a couple of weeks ago. Your precedent on how you make these considerations and how much you will twist and turn to make things work, or what you will and won't make people comply with, is something that I pay attention to, and everybody's attention to, because we read the meeting minutes. You don't have a dust mitigation plan. You don't even know the decibel levels of those trucks. You did a January study, knowing that that is a campground, and those aren't cars coming up, those are campers. You don't know your widths of the road at every point. You know the road doesn't have a shoulder. You know it's a substandard road by your own rating that you're trying to get funding for. These are all things that, yes, in certain circumstances you can get around because people have property rights. He gets to run gravel. But the reality of it is right now, you don't have a complete plan, and then the plan they gave you is not the one they're asking you to do. You just talked about a lot of amendments. Has anybody even considered what those amendments mean in the long run? For example, the definition of an applicant versus a time frame. That should have been solved well before this meeting, because an applicant can be easily got around. I can tell you how I get around it. I sell the property to my other business in which I have a 50% interest, and you guys are done. So these are things that you need to think through, because when you do it for them, you're doing it for my client tomorrow.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right.
Make a motion, we close any
It was
public
not-
comment. Oh, I guess we
yeah,
didn't open
we
a
didn't
public
open
hearing.
it, so
You can
we're
just
gonna-
close it.
Close that. Okay.
Did you decide not to speak?
You did not want to respond?
Am I okay? I appreciate Mr. Goebel's comments, because what is important to also consider is what this does mean going forward. County code, as it relates to mineral extraction operations, like the type being sought by Mr. Cronquist, is defined in 1713, and then code sections 010 through 100. Mr. Cronquist's history with the county is trying to figure out how he's supposed to create an agricultural hay meadow. Because I want to focus this on what is happening today. It's not a gravel pit. There's no selling. There's no commercial, industrial level grading, crushing, sorting. He is trying to create a hay meadow, and he has to get rid of fill material. That's it. That is what Mr. Cronquist is trying to do. Mr. Chairman, you made a comment the very first meeting that I appeared in front of you for this, and it was, if we want Cache County to remain agricultural, we need to, as a planning commission, make determinations that allow it to stay agricultural. That is what Mr. Cronquist wants to do. I bring up section 17.13 because of the restrictions that are not in it. Section 1713 does not have a restriction on how long an applicant can operate a minor extraction operation. And yet Mr. Cronquist has voluntarily offered 3 years. Section 1713.010 does not have any restrictions on the number of trips an applicant can make to and from an extraction operation. And Mr. Cronquist has voluntarily limited himself to 20 truckloads a day with a maximum of 50 per week without notice to the county. Section 1713.010 through 100 do not create any prohibitions on Mr. Cronquist from selling or seeking additional applications as they relate to this property. Mr. Cronquist has voluntarily said that he'll donate all of the material and that he'll seek no additional applications as they relate to this property. 1713.080 provides hours of operation of 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. with no record for school or other transportation up and down the road.
Add one thing.
Yes.
If we're gonna go through a whole bunch of these, to save time, even though it says that, when you apply for a conditional use permit, we can put additional conditions on top of that that limit those, and that's what we're choosing to do.
Certainly.
So we don't need to go through 20 of those. We understand what the code says, But we understand that we can also amend that when there's a conditional use permit to mitigate some of the potential impacts that could be done to make it safer, to make it less impactful to the residents around there. And that's what we're choosing to do.
Certainly. So let me speak to that exact point. On that exact point, what you're permitted to do under a conditional use permit is any mitigation steps to mitigate specifically the impacts that applicant is having. Applicant does not have any control over the width of the road. Applicant doesn't have any control over the types of vehicles that go up and down that road. The same dump truck, the same side loader that is being sought to be used for this project has and will go up and down that road for agricultural purposes, delivering hay, hauling trailers with horses in them. The county engineer, Matt, spoke of the pup trucks, dump trucks, and side loaders that go up and down Smithfield Canyon. You have two traffic studies in front of you, one performed by the applicant and one independently performed, both of which say that applicant's proposed use will have no impact on safety. While I agree with the commission that their responsibility is to create restrictions that will mitigate concerns raised, it is important to note that there have been no meaningful concerns raised. Two traffic studies say there's no impact from Mr. Cronquist's use. The types of vehicles that are being used up that canyon are identical to vehicles currently being used by Cache County up and down that road. In essence, Mr. Cronquist wants to create an agricultural meadow. He wants to create an agricultural meadow so badly that he's restricted himself voluntarily well beyond what is required by county code in an effort to make it as safe as he possibly can. He spent thousands of dollars hiring independent third-party people like Jeff Darty to come in and make sure the character of Smithfield Canyon Road is maintained. I would encourage you and urge you that if you want Cache County to stay agricultural, that this intermittent stepping stone, this temporary permit, not for the sale of gravel, not for commercialization, not for industrialization, but to get rid of excess fill dirt, which I will remind the commission, the Land Use Authority said was a single wheelbarrow. If I want to remove a single wheelbarrow from my property, I have to get an application under this. Let Mr. Cronquist keep his property agricultural and let him remove the material he needs to remove to make it so. Thank you.
Can I ask you two questions? Is that all right, Judge? So one of them on the 190,000 cubic feet that are estimated to need to come out of there, and there's 37,000 you need to fill the low area. Do I understand that right? Give or take. So there's about 153,000 that need to be hauled off, or is that on? Is the 37 in addition to the 190, or is that part of the 190? So in the application here, it says there's 190,000 cubic feet of material that needs to be excavated. But then down a little lower in the application, it says 37,000 needs to be used for a 1.2 acre site to fill.
Yeah, we're filling that across.
With part of that 190.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I want. So
I don't know exactly how the engineer did that. I mean, I didn't look at it.
yeah, that was my question, because if that's the case, then all these numbers go down by roughly 20%, right? The 600 loads becomes 500 loads. And this is based on just without the pup, what's in there right now. It's with, and the 12 weeks turns into 10 weeks if you were to do it in a weekly basis. I just wanted to see if that was part of that number.
To speak a little bit more to that, and I promise I'll sit down at that point. I apologize for continuing to take your time. The dump truck definition that's in there was not based off of a Merriam-Webster definition. It was based off of my client's understanding of what a dump truck was. It included the pup, and at all points that has been our presentation, it would be the side loader, dump truck, dump and pump. I've told the commission that, I've told the Development Use Planning Department that quite a few times. A pup is not going to be able to move it in that many loads, but I just want to clarify that. Anyway, I would submit on that unless the commission has any further questions.
Okay, good. All right, any questions? All right, thank you. Well, we've heard a lot on this particular subject. Commission, what is your direction here?
I'm sort of two minds. I mean, if the commission was going to move forward with the approval, I would feel better if these conditions were fleshed out. you know, I mean, there's like legal questions here, and the wording matters. And so, but that really doesn't matter if if it's gonna be denied, right? Like, we don't need to go through that exercise or whatever, so, anyway.
So if I run the quick numbers on that, do the math on that, if you are just using a regular dump truck that hauls 12 yards, time you minus out what you're gonna fill, there's 472 yard, or trips that would need to be used in just a regular dump truck.
So that's an estimate that the engineer did.
Yeah, right, yeah, and so that's
So
what,
we're kind of going off of just what he's doing overhead, right?
Yeah,
That's
so-
why I needed the time to get it out there.
yeah, and so I would say, yeah, without more clarification of a better survey that shows exactly what that cut and fill is,
That's why we're gonna do the survey.
yeah, I would want to see that. Because if it really is 475 loads, in my mind, I would feel comfortable if we put enough restrictions in there to do it over one season, 8 to 6. But if it's all still out there that that's what they're estimating, but it might be twice that, I would be comfortable approving that in today's world. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. We know where you stand.
Yeah, I don't have a long history, so, I have to say that I've been persuaded tonight to be in favor because of the public comments. I really took offense. And I shouldn't get that because we're doing the best we can here. I just came from the Capitol, from the DC this week, and I saw a lot of folks that are trying to throw a lot of roadblocks in people that are just trying to live their lives. A lot of crazy stuff, and so I don't want to get in the way of business and free enterprise and somebody trying to protect their land if they can do it without impacting other folks. I think that's why we got so many conditions on here.
Yeah.
To try and minimize that impact. If we can do it without the impact.
So I just want to maybe bring up a point, because you brought up the point about public comment. Just want to reiterate where the legal standard is when it comes to CUPs. Under state code, a CUP, the presumption is it shall be approved as long as reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use in accordance with applicable standards. Now, that does not require you to eliminate all those detrimental effects.
Mitigate.
I'm just reading, preaching to the choir now, and when it comes to the public comment piece of things, you gotta be able to point to something specific in the record on what we've heard here. Just because someone claims because they don't like it, you have to be able to point to some evidence to that. So if you're going to deny it, it has to be based on some criteria that's been presented. But otherwise, just remember what those presumptions are. Now, if you want to speak to anything more on that, because I talked about some of these things, wait, phrase that, Mr. Storer, please jump in. I just want to rewrite that because that was brought up on the public comment piece.
I would just echo the comments that Andrew, the county attorney, is making here. We feel like we're trying to impose as many conditions as we possibly can to mitigate the risk as meaningfully as we possibly can. And we would just encourage the county to, as Mr. Crane stated, approve recognizing the fact that Mr. Cronquist can't fix the road and he can't promise 100% safety, but that's not the condition on the road anyway, and his impacts aren't causing that. The conditions we propose, we think, do meaningfully ameliorate the dangers and impacts that Mr. Cronquist is causing. So I would echo his comments. Thank you.
So if there's any questions on that, let me know. But like I said, just wanted to give the criteria.
Thanks for reading it verbatim from the code on that, because that's really the burden that we have in here is we need to look at it and say, can we impose conditions that will reasonably handle
Mitigate those. I mean, some of the things you
impacts.
can get, health, safety, and welfare, some things you can take into account, but you gotta be able to point to something why it can't be mitigated if you're gonna have real,
But the original language in it is shall approve with that, and that's the challenge that we have. So.
Well, and I guess I feel like the private property right of being able to move that gravel with all of these conditions. The road studies, yeah, I hate it when these things collide with the growth of the canyon, the populace. But I think he's been very good at trying to mitigate as much as can be reasonably mitigated. When you get on the road, you don't know who's going to be on the road anyway. And so I'm inclined to approve.
Okay. All right, we've had comment there. Sounds like we're divided, but we have a general direction towards approval. With that in mind, if that's kind of a motion that we're going to see, we should discuss these conditions and ensure that they meet the form that we are intending for those. So we should run through. I have on condition 4, adding hours of operation from 8 to 6. Is that, no objections? Condition 5, we were going to, that's on the type of vehicles. Help me with this, Commission.
So we would approve the dump truck and truck trailer pup and side load pending approval or from engineering.
So take the proposed,
Engineering's recommendations.
Yeah, for engineering's recommendation.
but the proposed amendment to condition 5, but adding to that pending approval for the truck pup.
From the county engineer.
From the
county.
Okay.
Would you consider leaving it as is from the county standpoint and then pending?
I think that's kind of where we ended up, was the county said that the side dump was okay. They're currently operating that way, but it was the truck pup was kind of the sticking point on that, I think Matt said. All right. Is that amendment adequate? All right.
Just for clarification, so are we approving the dump truck and then everything else is pending approval from Matt?
Dump truck and side dump. And then the truck pup would be the pending approval from the county engineer. 8, applicant will apply, will be unable to apply for temporary, okay, this was a language thing, and perhaps legal can help us out on that.
I would mention earlier, you can say applicant is prohibited from seeking any additional on this, or you can say, I know it was brought up previously about.
You could sell it, so if we leave it as it was, then it's done.
Right, so there's that point to be considered there, but I still think you need to put some sort of either time limit on it, or reduce an applicant, or any applicant's businesses, or anything associated with, or whatever. That way, but just do a carte blanche, this parcel can't ever have this into perpetuity.
Yeah, it's gonna change a lot 50 years from now.
Right.
Okay. Somebody want to give some proposed language on that then?
Well, we could even leave it as it is in the original one and just put instead of never, no further extraction, you could just put a time limit on it, right?
Okay.
10 years from completion of remediation of the existing excavation pit or something like that.
Applicant will
Well,
be.
even if we did it on this one that was in the original.
When it goes to the county council.
Well, but yeah, you could.
Well,
Can I ask a
These
question?
parcels.
Yes.
Instead of taking so much time, because this, we may vote it down.
But that's why I don't want
So can we do the pending, and then if we vote it up, would the council want to examine these?
It doesn't go to them.
This is
We're the only review.
conditional use, so it's
Oh,
us.
this is not gonna.
This is just
Yeah,
us. We make the final
yeah.
decision, so I think
Sorry.
we need to
I
flesh
was
these out.
Forgetting what we were doing.
We are gonna have to.
Real quick,
Do an extension.
point of order.
Point of order? We have a motion to extend the meeting.
Do we have anything after this one on the agenda? Can we do it in 15 minutes?
Last item,
Or
right?
30 just to be safe?
It's up to you to make the motion.
I'll make a motion, we extend the meeting up to 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Well, I didn't think we could do it in 15. Sorry.
We have
If
a
I-
motion, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
I can propose some language on that if you'd like, that I think may encapsulate what the council's asking, if that's all right.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but we only allowed the opposition 3 minutes. I don't think we need to give this guy any more time if we're making our own.
Until we at least get through these.
That would be acceptable, I think. Okay. With that in mind, do you have sample language?
Yeah, I think right after that, right, applicant will be unable to apply for a temporary extraction permit on parcels 009 and 046009 for a period of 10 years after remediation has been approved by the county of the existing pit.
You okay with that language? Did you get that, Connor? Okay. All right, everyone? All right with that. And then 13, that proposed language that we had in there, county will assist in ensuring, we needed to clean that up. Actually, I think that one was okay as it is written with the clarification from Matt.
You could still, if you wanted to, put some language in there to say the county will assist in the approval process of ensuring that we kind of clarifies a little bit more if you want.
Okay.
Those 3 words is approval process?
Approval process?
Okay.
Yes?
Those modifications are, I can,
Something along the lines of the county will assist in the approval process to ensure blah, 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 blah.
Clearing,
I mean, I think we all understand where we're at with it based on what Matt said, but if you want to be more clear to say, hey, the county's not gonna go remove
Yeah,
it.
they're not gonna actually remove it. Yeah, this kinda sounds like they're gonna assist cleaning it out of there.
it does, that's
Yeah.
how I read it.
okay, 14, let's see, we covered that. Anybody have any issues with the proposed, if applicable,
Which one?
on 18? I think that's okay language.
Did we skip the 4 with the time of day? We did that one, right?
We did that,
All right.
correct.
We're getting so long, I'm getting tired.
With that said though, with the stormwater, I guess the only question I would have is do we need to acknowledge the drainage issue though? Because one of the applicants,
That'll
or
be
one of
part
the,
of the stormwater permit.
one of the comments was that
Yeah.
due to the whatever, had it directly impacted their house.
I think
Like
that's,
covering a ditch or something.
it's one of those things that's maybe beyond our scope because of,
If they get that stormwater discharge permit, so that should address that.
Okay. So it would be applicable, would it not be?
Yeah, under this permit, it's applicable.
so do we not want to have that, if applicable, in there? I think that's reasonable language, because if it does not apply
Yeah.
from the multi-sector general permit, they still have to have the stormwater permit from the county. Okay? All right, number 19, we were adding, the applicant will receive, will,
Fugitive dust compliance permit.
okay? All right, any other amendments to those conditions?
Well,
We alluded to this, but for some reason I felt there was confusion with the water truck.
Yeah.
That it couldn't be used. I mentioned this earlier, but I was a little confused whether it could be used due to the ongoing.
It just can't be filled on site.
Yeah, but we want the water truck until their personal deals are covered. It just can't be.
Do we need to clarify, which condition is that?
Number 20.
19 or 20. 20, I guess. So we need the water
So
truck.
we can just use, prior to filling of the water trucks on site, the water rights issue needs to be resolved.
Yeah, we definitely need it though, want it.
So we just need to change that. Instead of use, it just needs to be prior to filling the water truck on site. Water rights issues needs to be resolved. The rest of that would,
Okay, so just put on-site.
yeah, I think.
Fill
As long
on-site.
as he's not filling it on site until that water rights issue is resolved.
Okay.
Well, Jerry, you okay with
does
that?
not preclude them from using a water truck.
Yeah,
and
they,
filling
they,
it.
they,
need it.
they can
They
fill
need
it in
it,
town
yeah.
or wherever they fill it and use it now. I mean, they
Okay.
can still fill it somewhere.
All right. Okay. You're all, any other amendments?
There was the one that came up, in terms of Smithfield City's water line through there, so should we add one there to, you know, make sure that, you know, they're consulted about what sort of cover or improvements may need to happen there, just to, so it can handle a heavy truck? I mean, I think that was the only concern, right? They have a water
Whether there
line
was
right there
damage
at
and
the
it's
driveway. and
shallow.
It's very shallow, and that should probably be mitigated to a certain extent. I don't know what that means, but Smithfield City probably does, or even the county engineer, so.
So language for a condition on that would, the applicant will,
Work with Smithfield City.
Matt, you got any
Work with
good
his-
ideas
work with
on
his hard
what that
language
should
to-
be?
He's thinking about it back there.
Is that getting beyond our scope?
Well, it is.
It's-
I guess if they damage it, they gotta fix it.
They
but-
gotta fix
yeah.
it, yeah.
Just leave it.
If it breaks, you gotta fix it, so. Yeah, the only other one I would talk about is for me to be comfortable with it, we still need that time frame.
The knowledge of the water line just came up recently, as
hold
Connor.
on, we got two conversations, sorry.
I would think that, you know, Smithfield probably has an easement through there where that water line's been going. They probably mitigate that with a steel plate, they could mitigate that with concrete, but there needs to be some kind of coordination. It's out of my jurisdiction a little bit because it's not in the county right away.
Oh, it's not?
They're-
Okay.
Those are private. If it's in the county right away, that would be back in mine, but my understanding is that it's back
Oh, okay.
somewhere through their private
I was
property.
sort of assuming it was,
Is it
it
in the
would
right
come
of way?
up in the encroachment permit.
I'm saying it's in the right of way, so if it is, once we find out where that location is, if it is in the right of way, then that would give more jurisdiction to the county to help mitigate that. And it could be with concrete casing, if it's,
So is it right in that Cache County strip right there?
Yeah, and I talked to Josh, I've
Yeah,
already talked to him.
yeah.
It's not a big deal. I mean, I talked to the public works guy there.
so yeah.
Right, just,
And it's a spring line, it's not like it's a flow line coming down from the spring, so it's
Yeah.
not, it's been in there for a long time.
It's not pressure.
No, we've been over it, there's no pressure, so he's trying to do something with it anyways, he asked me about it.
Yeah.
So I've already been working with him, but you can put in there that.
There's easy ways to mitigate that if it's in the right of way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's easy.
Because we'll consult with them if they're doing any work on or around or near it. I was, like I said, it's come
More
up
than we have
recently. I
legal
wasn't sure.
25, yeah.
I was still looking at 26 for a time length on it, but it seems like 500 loads in 1 year is pretty easy.
All right, so language for that one.
oh,
Applicant will coordinate with Smithfield City.
the Cache County
and Cache
engineer.
County.
And Cache County to protect the
Existing water line.
infrastructure, water infrastructure.
Yeah,
Does that sound acceptable? Okay?
that seems to.
You okay with that language? Okay. This has been a battle. We're up to 25.
Mr.
I
Chair,
think, yes.
one of the points that was brought up earlier, it was talked about the maximum number of loads per week and being 20 per day, 50 per week, and then there was language in the letter of intent. And Wayman, please jump in, and didn't have a chance to jump into, talk about this before, I just think about it now. But with the language in the letter of intent says a maximum of 50 loads per week without notice to the county, said notice delivered via email. I think there was a question brought before, well, what does that mean if he wants to go over, can he go over or not? Maybe it'd be worth fleshing that out, what that approval, disapproval looks like, that type of thing, I don't know. I just think that maybe since it was brought up earlier, we want to bring that up as well. Just for a point for consideration.
Yeah, sure, please.
So the 50 loads per week was an effort to try to ensure that we weren't just doing 20 loads a day every single day, which is kind of the discussion that's been had. Oh, you could get it done in a season if you were doing that, but it was an effort to keep the amount of traffic down. The 50 loads per week, we don't anticipate crossing that maybe 1 week a year. It just is if there's a very big project that can receive the material, then we would like to be able to cross it. So it's possible that we could give more notice than a week. The concern is those projects are very fleeting, and so trying to get through a full approval process for more than 50 loads when it's going to happen so rarely. I mean, if the commission wanted to add a condition that said with no more than 50 loads a week, once a year, like once or twice a year, how often would you plan on having to cross that? Once or twice a year, and then that would be, you could put an
With
restriction like that on.
one excursion of 50 loads in a year's time.
We would ask for 2 just to be safe,
But we even allowed that with Geneva if they had a big drop job or something that they had, so I would think that it's.
Okay. Now that one,
I didn't see it in the list of the conditions per se, it was in the letter.
It was in the letter of intent.
LOI, so.
Applicant has to amend the LOI anyway, so one of the amendments you could put as a condition is condition 26 would be applicant must amend its letter of intent to indicate no more than 20 loads a day or 50 loads a week, more than twice a year. Applicant could amend the LOI to include
Okay.
that.
Commission, you okay with that language? That sounds reasonable and something that we could actually measure. Okay? All right, I've done my part.
So
how many years?
I guess, yeah, my last comment would be, I'm getting more comfortable with it, but still letting it go for up to 3 years to mitigate those for the residents. I'd still be in favor of adding a condition, you know, to have it completed 1 year from the approval or recording of the conditional use permit. I mean, we've had jobs where we have, 100 loads show up a day. So doing, even if it's a little over what we estimated in there, even if it's 700 or 800 loads over a year's time, seems pretty doable in the construction realm of things for me. So that, without that one, I won't feel comfortable that we've mitigated as much as we can. Again, that is an extra burden on the applicant, but I think it's still, in the circumstances, it's been there, what they've put up with for a number of years for those residents, that they know there's an end point and it's not very far off, instead of saying, well, it could be spread out over 3 years. And so for me, that's the only one I could add to get me comfortable with it all the way, but the other commissioners may be different.
So the time frame you're suggesting is?
1 year from the recording of the CUP, because that's when they can actually start, right? They've got to get that CUP recorded before they could take the first load out. And so we're giving them 1 year from that point.
Lane, how do you
I'm with all of these conditions fleshed out the way they are, I guess I'm in favor.
Looking at
the 1 year, yes.
At the 1 year.
Oh, excuse me, yes.
I would just throw into that, it seems like, we're kind of pulling on 2 different ends, right? We're trying to limit the number of loads and reduce that, to reduce the impact on the community. At the same time, that's gonna tell them, we gotta get it out of there as soon as we can. And so my angle on that is maybe 3 is excessive, but I don't wanna balance on one end and say, give them too tight of a timeline to get it done and be back here for an extension of a conditional use. At the same time, are we trying to accomplish that? I get where you're coming from. We want to have a reasonable window here to have it complete.
Well, I guess if they were getting close to that deadline and they still had X number of loads, they could take them to the neighboring pit and fill it. But I think a year for that amount of fill is pretty reasonable, especially because that's based on a single dump truck load, right? 15 yards, 12 yards. If they're able to take pups and side dumps, that number, even if it's twice that number, which hopefully they're engineered at a better estimate of what needs to be excavated out of there than double of what that number is. But that's still, in my mind, not that many loads to get over a 52-week period.
But they also have to have some place to go with it as well.
But even with that, there's a lot of construction going on. If you're giving fill away, it seems pretty easy to get rid of that fill.
It's not as easy as you think. We got, there's about, how many's down there, Gold Forest? 200,000, Nathan,
Yeah.
So, that's a lot.
Okay, so commission, any desire to add that, or to take away from the project timeline?
I'd just assume they finished it while they're doing it, so if it's gonna take a little more time, 2 years or something, but yeah, I'm probably not as inclined to,
okay,
just so we can get it done, so we don't have to come back and hit it again.
All right.
So that was 2 years?
I didn't make.
Still debating.
We're still debating. We got 1 year and.
Or the 3 that's already
3
in there,
years.
yeah.
We didn't have a 2. Brady's getting tired, so.
Well, I've just said too much earlier, so I'm.
Okay.
You haven't said anything for a while, come on, join in.
Missed it.
All right.
I did show up late, yes, I might have missed all your good stuff.
Mr. Sands, you have any thoughts on that? You can sometime.
I don't.
You're okay either way.
Mr. Chairman, I'd never want to put her on the spot, but Barbara, from your experience being on the council, seeing these things and stuff, I don't know if you've been involved with any of this, but do you have any thoughts, feelings?
I haven't been involved in a lot of this. This is a learning experience for me. I'm inclined to go with the 2-year time frame. You know, if I were voting, I'd go with that because of what was stated, we're limiting the truck trips out of there, and I think that, I don't know if 1 year is enough. I know I'm not as mathematically inclined as what Nathan is, but I would say that's what I would go with, is the 2 years, not the 3 years. I think that's too long, but the 2 years is what.
Now you've seen how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
It's messy business.
Take that for what it's worth.
All right. Nate, make it. We're ready for you.
Well, if I made it, I'm gonna make the 1, so if you want 2, you better make it, 'cause to add that condition in there.
I'll go with 2 if you feel better about that.
Yeah, I'm okay with 2.
I've seen weather conditions in a year that could
Yeah.
totally shut you down, and
Yeah.
then you're in trouble.
That's my concern, is that, you know, that we need to give
We have a
sufficient.
plan. Okay,
Let's
so
go
we're.
2 years.
Is that 27?
That is
Condition
27.
27.
3 more.
Oh, 3, you're trying to get to 30? Come on, Jay. Go down to 12 minutes.
I got it to this point.
I will make a motion for approval on the 27 conditions and 2 conclusions.
Okay, and those are the amended, as amended.
As amended.
Okay,
27, yes.
we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion on that motion?
I just want to say, maybe chime in here, because folks need to appreciate that some of us that have been around for as long as, like I have, 15 years on this or whatever, we've had other applicants come in with a minor extraction. And they say they're only going to do the 5 acres thing. And the next thing you know, it's Mount Pisgah operation with dozens and dozens and dozens of trucks every day, all day long. And I think that's why we're so deliberative on this, because we've been hoodwinked before, and we don't want that to happen again. You know, Mount Pisgah, nobody lives next to that, so it's a different kind of animal. Here, we all know that there are neighbors right there, and that's where the biggest concern is. And so I just want to give that short background as to why I think we're being careful with this. application and making sure we do everything we can to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people that are affected. So, thank you.
Where I appreciate everything that you guys have done. This has been hard. And I know what it's like to be on a council and try to make a decision and hope for the best. But thank you for all you've done. But if I were on the commission here, I would do a nay vote on it. And that's all I have to say. But I don't have a vote on here, but thank you so much for all that you've done.
Okay. All right. We've had a motion and a second and discussion on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any of those in opposition to that?
Nay.
3 and 3.
Where's our seventh man?
Where's Kurt?
Where's Kurt? He needs to be here to break the tie.
You're gonna have to help me on Robert's rules on what we need to do right now.
He's looking. He hasn't had that. Yeah.
I'm glad he said that.
Well,
if the applicant's all right with amendment to my 1 year, I could be a yay and we could get it over with, but with the 2, I don't think that's enough. I think we can mitigate that, so that's, Kurt would be the deciding vote. It may have to come back then. Oh, I don't know.
On that, can I ask a clarifying question? Just a brief clarifying question. I think part of applicant's concern is the winter months in a year, make it so that a year is not a year.
Yeah, right.
So-
I understand. It's only 30. It's only 30 or 35 weeks. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I just wanted to
factored
make
in.
sure that was what you were factoring in.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it changes year to year. This year, it's almost every month all year long, but next year could be like 2 years ago. Understandable. Yep.
That's why I like the 2 years.
So, I mean, if, I'm not an attorney, but, you know, the motion failed, or yes,
For lack of a majority.
correct, and so.
We could have a secondary motion.
Somebody could make a different motion.
I just want to make
I
sure that
would
we're,
think,
I
but-
believe you're correct,
Yeah.
but I want to make sure, that's why we have counsel here.
Not often we get a tie vote.
That's right.
As it's a motion, if a motion fails to pass a majority, it's failed to pass.
Fails. Okay. All right, motion fails. Do we have another motion?
I'll make one, but the applicant may not like it, but we'll see if it passes or not. I would make a motion to amend number 26 to the 1 year.
Or you're making a new motion?
A new
Because that one
motion.
failed, so your new motion would
Yep.
be to,
To approve it with amending condition number 26 to a 1 year time period.
and everything else?
Everything else stay
With
the
the,
same.
how many?
The top 25 conditions with their original amendments would stay the same.
Okay. We have a motion? We have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion?
Well, I guess I just have a question.
I knew we could get him talking again.
I guess my question is, after listening to this, I realize there's a history between both sides of the road, both sides of the deal here. But if the opposition was truly acceptable of taking the fill and you're giving it away, getting rid of it, why don't you just haul it over there? And I'm all over it, because you're not going down the road. Huh?
No comment.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on that front. I just trying to help with getting it accomplished.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 4-2, motion carries. All right. Any other discussion, anything that we have on this? And folks, thank you for, I just want to say that, thank you for your participation in this. I know, like I said, making sausage is messy business, and this has been one of those, so we appreciate your participation in it. We're put in a challenging situation, and appreciate the commission here for their work in making this happen, and I get it's challenging stuff, but we appreciate your participation in this public process. Connor, anything else we need to cover in this meeting? Next agenda?
Just a couple rezones, one CUP.
That's what you said last month.
About this month.
Here we are.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One thing, I'm not pointing fingers, but we gotta layer these a little better so that we're respectful and on time.
I would agree with that, and that was something that I should have made that change, but
didn't
I would
think of it
I would
either.
appreciate if you guys, if I missed something, I'm just filling in tonight. We need to do that, but I would say to staff, we could have structured the meeting so we could have had those two done prior to this discussion.
And respected all parties.
And it would have worked better, so.
It didn't dawn
That
on
was,
me.
I'm not being
Yeah.
critical of you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, no, I
I was gonna make
Staff.
the same comment, Ray, that
I'm making the criticism of myself and all of that, but I think we could adjust, and we probably should have just done that as part of our initial part of the agenda to make that. But thank you so much for all you do.
Punishment is, you'll be chairman.
Yeah.
that's right. Your years are coming. Yeah.
Oh, no, I've been